Sorry that we will be holding it back a little bit because Dr. Masli is stuck in traffic jam on Federal Highway, but should be here soon. He's starting soon. Dr. Masli is very near, so once he's here, we will start. Sorry for the delay. Okay. Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. So, our Imam besar sudah sampai, so kita boleh mula. Now, first of all, thank you everyone for coming. As you can see, we have 7 speakers. So 4 panelists. Ustaz Wanji would come at about 9, so that's scheduled. And after that, we'll go to the discussants. So they will take the stage after this, and we'll invite questions from the floor, and the panelists would have a chance to rebut and go for another 10 minutes or so. Because of the numbers of speakers, so we would have to be very disciplined. So, for example, for every panelist and discussant, we will show the time at 5 minutes. Quang Liang? 5 minutes. Then 3 minutes. Then 1 minute. So after that, then if you come to an end, you have to show that there's an end. And otherwise, we just raise that 1 minute again, so everything have to be wrapped up. And all this is actually directly online. It goes live. Now, we are aiming to talk about this. Let me quickly introduce our panels, then I would explain why I'm here. Dr. Masli from International Islamic University of Malaysia. His household name for people who are interested in Islam and so on, and I can assure you, you'll be entertained by him. This is my Tok Guru, my Ustaz, Dr. Zul, from Parti Amanah Negara, and he is basically one of the brains in the party in terms of theoretical and theological position. And this is my boss. But today, Zairil, YB Zairil K. Johari, but he's not here as my boss, but he's representing DAP. So we will tell the story about how DAP look at Maqasid Syariah. And then we'll have Wanji, Ustaz Wanji representing PKR. Then I'll quickly introduce our discussant, but I'll do that again. Cynthia Gabriel, she is from C4, Center for Combating Corruptions and Cronyism. It's explosive. Then we have Chow Ying from Kuala Lumpur and Selangor Chinese Assembly Hall. Then we will have the star of Ma'al Hijrah, right? I was told that you hijrah bila semasa awal Muharram, right? Datuk Syaifuddin Abdullah. He is the Chief Secretary of Pakatan Harapan. Now, there's one question still not resolved. That is, how can Maqasid Syariah be a national agenda? And why you actually have, okay, Penang Institute is a governmental body, so we organized this last week, it makes sense, but why would civil rights committee of this Chinese Assembly Hall, we do not rule out there's Chinese who are Muslim, but in general, most Chinese are non-Muslim. What business do we have here? Now that actually goes to a very important question. That question is that, what is Islam? Does Islam belong to the Muslim? Now this is a saying by Muhammad Abduh, and a very important thinker in Islam modernism. He went to Paris and came back, people asked him, what did you see in Paris? This is his answer. I went to the West and saw Islam, but not Muslim. I got back to the East and I saw Muslim, but not Islam. So you have this distinction between the faith and the Ummah. People who call themselves Muslim may not actually be believing or practicing Islam. And Islam may be found beyond the Muslim. So when we say Maqasid Syariah national agenda, that doesn't mean that, we are proposing to turn every Malaysian into Muslim, and therefore you can have this as a national agenda. And talking about this, you must know this name. This is Professor Hussein Askari. He did a study to evaluate 208 countries, looking at how Islamic their economic life is. And the country that is most Islamic start with I and R. Guess which country? Iraq? No. Iran? No. It's Ireland. Number 2 is Denmark. Number 3 is Luxembourg. Number 4 is Sweden. Number 5 is United Kingdom. Number 6 is New Zealand. Number 7, I think this is, you might have a little bit of problem, Singapore. Number 8, Finland. Number 9, Norway. Number 10, Belgium. You see, so this basically confirms what Sheikh Abdul say. You go to the West, you see Islam. May not be Muslim though. Okay, where do the Muslim majority countries stand? The good news is Malaysia is top at number 33. Followed by Kuwait, 48, UAE, 64, Turkey, 71, Tunisia, 72, 91, Saudi Arabia, 128, Egypt, 131, Algeria, 148, Iraq. Now you notice there's a place that I leave it empty, right? You probably wouldn't like this answer. 27, Israel. So that's the Pembuka Bicara. We are here looking at Maqasid Syariah, trying to go beyond that popular perceptions that Islam is something exclusive to the Muslim. So we are going back to what some of us may be very familiar with. Islam is Rahmatun lil Alamin. Islam as a blessing to the universe. So without further ado, we go to, do you have slide? Oh, okay. We need to quickly, do you have it in pen drive? So our Ustaz Masli will buka bicara on what Maqasid Syariah is. Now that may not be, it sounds strange for many of us, but if I tell you this is a plural form of a word that we are familiar with, you probably will recognize the singular form. The singular form is maksud, the word we use in Malay, meaning, purpose. So Maqasid Syariah just basically maksud in plural terms, meaning that Sharia has more than one maksud, one meaning. And after Dr. Masli opening, we will go to each of the party representative. They will share with us how do they see the relevance of Maqasid Syariah in national politics. How can Maqasid Syariah inform our agenda of reform? So in a way, they would be representing the party, and then they will face fierce and very powerful questions from the two ladies, who happen to be non-Muslim and ladies, our discussant. Then we have Datuk Saifuddin Abdullah to ask questions, but also perhaps he wants to contribute his idea as the representative from Pakatan Harapan. And then we'll open to the rest of you. And then we go back to our panelists again. So that's the format. Huh? Yes. So we assure you that if you, this talk especially our non-Muslim friend, may change your perception on what Sharia is. If that doesn't happen, then we basically fail our purpose. And we will blame the speakers. Pulling his legs now.
I guess,
15 minutes start now.
okay, assalamu alaikum, and very good evening to everybody. Terribly sorry for what happened. Came late and all these IT issues. So, Maqasid Syariah for Dummies. When Chingwat first asked me to be part of this panels this evening, he said that we are going to have a special session on Maqasid Syariah for Kafir. So I say, oh, it's wonderful. I mean, but I think we also need to furnish those non-kafir about Maqasid Syariah, because they too don't really understand what is Maqasid Syariah. Not only Maqasid, but also Sharia. So I tried to simplify Maqasid Syariah in a very, let we say, a generic term, in the simplest way that anybody, Muslims or non-Muslims, could understand and grasp it, instead of dealing with certain terminologies and certain, those difficult Arabic terms that we're going to face. So, but before we go further on with Maqasid Syariah, there are some issues with the word Sharia itself. The word Sharia is very problematic. Not only the non-Muslims, and not all non-Muslims are kafir, only those who, with certain characteristic, waging war on Islam or rejecting the truth or rejecting God, they're kafir, but non-Muslim, we call them non-Muslims. Okay, not only non-Muslims don't really grasp the word Sharia, but also Muslims. Some might thought that Sharia means Hudud. Sharia does not only mean Hudud. Some might thought that Sharia is strongly associated with Islamic family law, simply because we have a lot of Mahkamah Sharia and Sharia enactment or whatever. Sharia also must not be confined with Islamic family law in Sharia courts and the snooping squad. Because for some, the word Sharia is associated strongly with the snooping squad. Sharia also must never be defined with the activities of ISIS or Al-Qaeda. So what is Sharia? Perhaps some of you may recognize this guy, the former Archbishop of Canterbury, Dr. Rowan Williams, whom I have a very invaluable opportunity to meet with his advisor on Islam when I was in Bosnia. And this guy, to be honest with you, is something, I would say. I mean, he's the Archbishop of Canterbury when I was there in the UK, but his knowledge about Islam, about classical Islamic thoughts, and about other religions, it was massive. So he created a very controversial statement in the year 2008 when he said that Sharia law is inevitable in the UK. So people got it wrong. People thought that he was talking about, Hudud, or perhaps, those Sharia law that whatever that we have in our mind. But actually, in the year 2012, his prophecy came true when the current Prime Minister of Britain, David Cameron, in the World International Economic Forum declared that Great Britain will be the first country in Europe to launch a Sharia compliant sukuk. And Durham University, where I was trained in, has been declared as the leading European universities in terms of Islamic economy, which dealing a lot about Sharia, Islamic Sharia economy and etc. So the word Sharia for this guy does not only mean Hudud, does not only mean, you know, the segregation of halal trolley and haram trolley, and definitely nothing to do with the snooping squad. Okay, the distorted Sharia, definitely this has nothing to do with Sharia. Halal made shame on Britain. The elevator is only for transporting halal goods only. Wow, this is really a torment, man. Non-halal trolley, kegunaan tidak halal, whatever. Okay, unfortunately, this is what people have in their mind. Whether Muslims or some non-Muslims, some Muslims, they always thought that Sharia is all about, you know, this is either legal issues or is either about all these halal, haram foods or etc. Okay, so what is Maqasid Syariah? Actually, before we engage with the word, before we embark furthermore with the word Maqasid Syariah, it is interesting for us to look at the word Sharia itself. Sharia is a comprehensive lifestyle that has been proposed by the two main sources of Islam, which is Quran and the prophetic tradition, or tradition of Prophet Muhammad. So a lot of Islamic rulings, a lot of Islamic laws, be it something to do with legal matters, be them something to do with morals, be them something to do with the relation of human being, business transactions, politics, good governance, etc., they are part of this whole encompassing idea of Sharia. But Muslim scholars, as early as Al-Imam Al-Ghazali died the year 1111, for him, because this guy, a philosopher, come theology, it is not satisfied for him to accept Sharia or Islamic laws or all the ordinance in Quran or in prophetic tradition as they are without knowing the purposes of those laws. So in his book, Al-Munqidh min al-Dhalal, or translated into English as Guide for the Perplexed, he did talk about the method in knowledge inquiry. He said it should start with doubt. So based with this idea of doubt, he's trying to doubt Sharia. He's trying to doubt Islamic rulings, Islamic law, even Islamic teaching, even in the existence of God himself. So he tried to apply that on his major field, which is Sharia, Islamic law, or Islamic fiqh, Islamic jurisprudence. And he founded this idea of Maqasid Syariah. He discovered that all those rulings in Islam, all the Sharia rulings, have their own objectives, have the higher purposes of it. And through the inductive reasoning method, he discovered that the highest objectives, the higher objectives of Sharia, that are trying to be attained, trying to be achieved by Sharia law, is to preserve the 5 necessities in human life. To preserve life, to preserve faith, and some scholars, I mean, put faith before life, but most of scholars put life before faith, because you cannot have faith because if you don't have life. To preserve mind or intellectual, to preserve progeny, lineage, and dignity, and to preserve wealth. And he gave few examples, like the prohibition of killing, committing suicide, consuming unhealthy foods, consumption of hazardous food or drinks. All of this is to preserve life, to protect life. Or the encouragement to free slaves, to feed the poor, to save lives, to bring peace and avoid war. Those are another examples to preserve and also to protect life. Prohibition of consuming intoxicants, stealing, robbery, and severe punishment for those who committing them. This is part of the methods to preserve mind. And encouragement for businesses, ethical market conducts, free market, ownership, charity, endowment, looking after old parents, taking care of orphans and etc. Those are to preserve wealth, to preserve mind and etc. Prohibition of slandering, libels, fornication, adultery, sex out of the wedlock, and those is to preserve and to protect their lineage and also dignity. And the research or the studies on Maqasid Syariah continued. It did not stop at Al-Ghazali. It has been continued by a prominent Shafi'i Mazhab scholar named Ibn Daqiq al-Aid, died the year 1302 AD, where he concluded that Sharia is to attain, the whole Sharia is to attain benefit for the human life and community and to avoid disaster and destruction in the worldly life and hereafter. And Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah, a prominent Hanbali Mazhab scholar, died the year 1350 AD, added, this one is very important. I think it prepared the endless list of Sharia. He mentioned that any means to attain and maintain justice is Sharia, even if they are not mentioned in Quran or even prophetic tradition. So for him, it is an endless list of activities, endless list of sets of rules. Whenever it aimed to achieve justice, then it is Sharia. But the more comprehensive studies on Maqasid Syariah was done by an Andalusian, a Spanish scholar named Al-Shatibi, died the year 1388. Where for him, Shariah's obligations relate directly to their purposes in life of humans, and these purposes, he suggested, belong to one of these three categories. Instead of only confine it into 5 essentials, he added 2 more, objective of Sharia, that Sharia rules are trying to achieve it. Number 1 is necessities, we've been talking about it just now. Number 2 is utilities or hajiyat, and number 3 is ameliorates, or sometimes also being defined as the luxuries that makes one's life comfortable. And for him, Maqasid Syariah, the higher objective Sharia, is not only to preserve, it's not only to protect those 5 essentials plus these 2 qualities, but also to promote. So he was talking about Hifz an Janib al-Adam and Hifz an Janib al-Ijad, that's part of the Islamic jurisprudence terminologies for it. It is to promote those necessities and those essentials. Okay. What are those utilities or special requirements? These, according to Al-Shatibi, are requirements without which man could be in distress and would suffer hardship without it. They include the requirement to enjoy lawful and good things in life, and for ameliorative requirements, these are requirements whose absence would not seriously undermine life, but they include the various manners related, for instance, to eating and drinking, etc. The fulfillment of such requirements is aimed at improving the quality of life or imparting beauty on it, hence creating civilization for human community. Okay. Tahir ibn Ashur, a Tunisian scholar, known of his treatise on Maqasid, died the year 1973, added to these 5 essentials 3 other qualities or 3 other essentials, which is justice. Because for him, without justice, you cannot achieve all those 5 essentials. And when he deals with justice, actually he just, repeating what had been uttered by Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah, but he added another more important essential, which is freedom and equality before the law. This is what been followed by Rashid al-Ghanouchi and his contemporaries. If not mistaken, Zairil has the golden opportunity to have met Rashid Ghanouchi in Tunisia. I was in Singapore yesterday, and we were surprised to know that few people and some part of people in our community are accusing Ghanouchi of being extremist. But when we showed that even DAP are dealing with Ghanouchi, so we're trying to ask them, is DAP becoming extremist or Rashid Ghanouchi becoming more democratic. Okay. Dr. Yusuf Al-Qaradawi has made a very more comprehensive way in looking into Maqasid Syariah, where he said that, excuse me, is this mine? Yes. The intra-generation sustainability should be addressed in understanding Maqasid, and it's part of what Sharia is aimed to achieve. Okay. Hence, he said that when we trying to look at from this dimension, he said, amongst the Maqasid Sharia, or amongst the issues that Sharia should address in the modern life, involve the environmental issues, sustainability, poverty elevation, literacy awareness, welfare, cleaner country, good governance, world-class education, battle against corruption. Never knew you're doing Maqasid Sharia all this while. Okay. Rule of law, economic growth, family values, benevolent society, harmonious relation between citizens, empowered civil society, active participation of citizens, greater mutual respect and understanding between nations are all within the radius of Maqasid al-Sharia. Okay. So he concluded Maqasid is actually a well-being. Maqasid al-Sharia means an effort to achieve human well-being. Unlike the narrow interpretation of Sharia from both extremists and rejectionists alike, Sharia deserves better understanding by looking at the bigger picture of Sharia and its Maqasid. A call for the implementation of Sharia should not be narrowed into the enforcement of the traditional Islamic criminal punishment, but the embrace of universal good values as long they are not contradicting the tenets of Islam. Thus, a prosperous, healthy, democratic, empowered, and more responsible society, hence a better community, a better country for everybody built on mutual respect and mutual recognition. That is Maqasid Sharia, but there are still few questions that need to be addressed. Let me leave it during Q&A. What's the relation between Sharia and creed or Aqidah? Thus, if somebody embraces this whole over-encompassing idea of justice or Sharia, is it necessary for them to convert to Islam? Because I still remember when I was in the UK, I have a friend who said that, I'm Muslim with small m, not with capital M. But in reality, she's a Catholic. She's a Catholic, but I asked her how. She said, because, she told me because I already embraced a lot of Sharia in my life. She's an environmentalist. She fight for, very unfortunate, she's a socialist. If she's a libertarian, then she's a full-fledged Sharia. No, I'm just joking. Okay. No, I'm a senior fellow of ideas, so, you know, I couldn't get rid of that. A free market is part of Sharia. Okay. So, I mean, and she's trying to say that, oh, I could accept a lot of Sharia, but I couldn't accept few things of Sharia. So I told her that, oh, another 1 minute, good. Okay. I told her that it's okay. It's not necessary to embrace Sharia. It's not necessary to become a Muslim when you try to embrace Sharia. I mean, this whole idea of Sharia could be attained even by non-Muslim, and it is not necessary for them to convert to Islam. Sharia and Islamic law, what's the relation? Because if you see, when we started talking about Islamic law, people will start to ask you, which Islamic law are you talking about? Is it the Johor type of Islamic enactment, or Perlis type of Islamic enactment, or Negeri Sembilan? Okay, we'll talk about it later. Sharia and Islamic enactments. Sharia and Islamic economy, finance and banking. Sharia between private space and public space. I think these people like to talk about it very much. Sharia and moral issues. Afiq is smiling, I can see. So we'll leave it during the Q&A. Thank you very much.
As I promised, Dr. Masli will change your perceptions on Sharia. Now we're going to have my Ustaz, Dr. Zul. This is probably the third occasion he talked about Maqasid Syariah in the past 1 month, and he knows what expectation I have on him.
No, we are too guru around. I don't have
Dr. Zul, we want to change your place?
Okay, before they continue, I want to make a little announcement, even without the permission of Wong Ching Huat. I have a group of friends, the pro-Penan activists. I think they are opening their stall over there. They have a project, Lighting Borneo, or Light Up Borneo, a group of, I'm a mixture of responsible citizens. So please visit their stall because whatever they are doing is part of Maqasid Syariah.
Time starts now. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, salam amanah, salam reformasi. Salam kepada semua. Cadangnya saya nak bercakap dalam bahasa Melayu sebab my slide is in English. So I usually do that. If my slide is in English, I'll deliver in Malay, to be fair. If my slide is in Malay, I'll deliver in English. Jadi saya bercadang untuk bercakap dalam bahasa Melayu. Would that be fair? I'll go bilingual, if not trilingual.
Silakan.
Baik, saya didahului oleh Dr. Mazli. Sepatutnya dua tok guru ni kena cakap dulu pada saya, lebih mudah untuk saya. Tapi saya diminta oleh saudara moderator, Dr. Wong Chin Huat. Chin Huat ni bila pula saya jadi ustaz dia pun saya tak tahu. Tapi we have had a long relationship in term of friendship. Ya, sudah went over, a decade now perhaps. Saya mulakan dengan mengingatkan saudara-saudara bahawa pada penghujungnya program ini, pada penghujungnya diskusi ini, kami mengharapkan seperti mana saya telah bentangkan maqasid ini di tempat-tempat lain, especially in one big dinner, almost like 95% were Chinese and Indians, and when we were wishing them as they walk out of the day one, fundraising dinner, mereka keluar dan menyebutkan kepada kami semua, malam ini bermulanya kami tidak lagi takut pada syariah. This is what we hope to achieve at the end of this discourse, and beyond that, beyond just eliminating your fear, laying your anxieties over syariah, we want to make sure why Maqasid is a game changer in our effort to have a better Malaysia. Incidentally, I wrote Maqasid Syariah and a better Malaysia in the Edge last week. Mungkin ada yang terbaca? Ya, mungkin ada few. I see faces smiling. But where I'm coming from, actually moderator ni nak suruh saya bercakap daripada perspektif yang agak lain. Jadi saya terpaksa membuat andaian saudara-saudara sudah faham Maqasid Syariah. Can I say that? Can I assume that? Kalau sudah faham betul-betul seperti mana yang Dr. Mazli telah jelaskan dan pencerahan yang beliau buat, it will allow me to just focus my time over why suddenly Maqasid Syariah becomes an in thing or the buzzword right now, particularly among political players. Saudara-saudara telah diingatkan oleh Dr. Mazli. Where are we now? Bagaimana Maqasid itu bermula dengan beberapa nama-nama ulama besar. Mungkin dia tak sebut Al-Juwaini, Al-Haramain, Imam Haramain, ya, dan yang tertera di atas sana, sehinggalah yang di contemporary like Ibn Ashur, who died in 1973, dan of course still around, beside Taha Jabir, who died about a few years back, and Raishuni is a contemporary Islamic thinker, political thinker, and academics, and Qaradawi, of course, you know well, and Dr. Professor Jasir Auda, who were around some time back. Apa yang nak saya sebutkan, after Ash-Shatibi in his magnum opus, his seminal work of Al-Muwafaqat, that is a real seminal work, perhaps the treatise on Maqasid. Ash-Shatibi, yeah, Ash-Shatibi died in the year 1388, yeah, 1388 AD. But let me tell you this, that if it ever crosses your mind that Maqasid ini seolah-olah tidak ada hubungan langsung dengan the earlier companions, then perhaps you are wrong. May I stress this, that it is traced back to none other than Sayyidina Umar al-Khattab. This Maqasidic, if I may use that word, Maqasidic thinking was already well with him, and he was the first among the Sahaba, the great companion of the Prophet, peace be upon him, that actually elucidated and exemplified and professed and embodied this discipline of Maqasid. Umar al-Khattab is actually one of the companion. He's the second Khalif of Islam, as you very well know, perhaps. On numerous occasions, and I don't have to enumerate it tonight, but on numerous occasions where his action is run as if contrary to the verses of the Quran, as if contrary to the text of the Quran. And when he is contested and when he received dissent from his other companion, he in fact elaborated as to why he took that ijtihad as early as that. Among other things is the issue of the division of Ghanaim, which is the spoil of war, on the issue of compilation of the Quran. As you know, the Quran was not as a book in the time of the Prophet. It came a lot later, and it was the ijtihad, it was the intellectual decision of Omar, reminding the first Khalif, Abu Bakr, to get the Quran compiled as a book. Yeah, and there were a few others that I could go on, but then I'll just drive home the point here, bahawa Maqasid, thinking of Maqasid meaning the attempt at understanding the higher objective, the higher intent, yeah, the higher maqsud, the higher meaning, and maybe some others would like to use the word spirit, objective, yeah, matlamat of verses of the Quran, verses of the textual verse of the Quran, sudah in fact predated to the time of Umar. So it's not a recent innovation. Get that clear? Bukan satu perkara bid'ah yang dalam kurun ini, the Bondadis ni, you know, as you could see well, that from Al-Haramain right up to Al-Ghazali, Al-Qarafi, yeah, kemudian dengan apanya ni, later on you see in the name of few others like Ibn Taymiyyah, yeah, and then came Ash-Shatibi, and then of course the work of Ibn Ashur. Ibn Ashur, yeah, Ibn Ashur, as I said earlier, 20th century. Now, so it is a discipline of knowledge in the ulum, in the bigger corpus of knowledge of Islam. So Maqasid has its place, much as other discipline of knowledge which perhaps Ustaz Wanji will elucidate on usulul fiqh. I don't want to be, troubling you by many Arabic words that I throw around here, but suffice it to tell you that Maqasid Syariah is a particular discipline of knowledge in Islam, and all the more now it is finding its significance because this is why I think it's so important for a person like me as a political actor, player, part of what I believe amanah, the parti amanah negara, yang merupakan generasi kedua gerakan Islam yang saya sudah mula politicize this. As usual. No, itu penting. Itu peranan saya. Sebab dengan itu sebenarnya saya dijemput kemari untuk membawa sedikit pencerahan mengapa generasi pertama gerakan Islam sangat menekankan persoalan syariah. Apabila bercakap tentang syariah, bercakap hanya tentang pelaksanaan Qanun Jinaiah Islamiyah, the Islamic Penal Code. Now, kalau saya rumuskan, ketika umat Islam berdepan dengan kekalahan, dan terburai dan terurainya apa yang dikatakan di Islamic Empire, particularly in 1924, for the last of the chain of the Ottoman Empire, daripada situ bermulanya satu keinginan umat Islam untuk menyaksikan satu penyatuan semula umat. Dan ketika itu jugalah the idea of unifying the ummah with the notion of Daulah Islamiyah or the Islamic State or the Islamic Caliphate. Dan bersekali dengan itu justru kerana given the fact that they were under the yoke of imperialism for centuries, maka that post-colonialist era adalah dicirikan is reflected in the way Muslims and particularly movements adopted their methodology in facing particularly the West, seen as subjugating and subordinating the Muslim Ummah and destroying any semblance of so-called Islamic Empire. Lalu justru kerana itu juga saudara-saudara akan dapati bahawa gerakan Islam generasi pertama punya beberapa ciri, antara lainnya one is of course the anti-Western rhetorics. Kedua, memanggil kepada the clarion call for uniting again the Muslim Ummah in the sense of a Daulah or an Islamic State. And thirdly, that the clarion call of Islam as the solution for all. And what they meant, al-Islamu huwa al-hal, that's the Arabic phrase of it, bermaksud dengan pandangan ketika itu juga the narratives, ataupun I can't really see, honestly. Berapa minit lagi tu? 3 ya? Okay, I got to expedite this.
We can give you 2 more minutes. I know it's hard for politicians.
Yeah, especially politicians. Okay, that's very gracious of you. Jadinya bermula situ, maka gerakan Islam dan political Islam terperangkap dalam naratif itu. They were entrapped in this discourse, what I in my writing call the intellectual paralysis, yang tidak boleh mengungkap perjuangan Islam itu kecuali dengan menyebutkan bahawa seolah-olah syariah yang diartikan itu adalah qanun, the penal code will solve all problems. It's be all and end all of solutions. Jadi saudara-saudara sekalian, saya segera menyebutkan pada saudara bahawa it is I wouldn't say a post-Arab Spring phenomena, tetapi lebih ketara, khususnya di Timur Tengah. I wouldn't want to use the Middle East, but maybe North Africa ataupun tak apalah, forget about the phraseology. Di Timur Tengah kerana gerakan Islam yang rata-ratanya adalah from the Muslim Brotherhood took a generational shift, satu anjakan gerakan Islam yang sudah lagi tidak tidak berbahasa dan tidak mempunyai discourse dan naratif ataupun tawaran politiknya atas rubrik, atas nama Islamic State, penyelesaian hudud, dan juga tidak lagi very anti-Western. Mereka mau seen as able to relate to everyone, termasuk the West. Jadi, saudara-saudara sekalian, now where we are coming from right now, we believe that amanah negara adalah sebahagian daripada gerakan Islam generasi kedua ini, yang menampilkan political Islam yang tidak membawa retorik seperti itu atau naratif seperti itu. Bahkan sebaliknya, segalanya adalah berteraskan, and we want to believe that, and we are, in fact, dalam konstitusi kami Parti Amanah Negara meletakkan bahawa di samping Al-Quran Sunnah sebagai sumber segala dasar dan polisi kami, meletakkan Maqasid Syariah as the driving force, as the driving guiding principles that will allow us to formulate policies in the entire aspect and domain of life. Habis dah.
You have to tell us Amanah positions on that.
Right.
Really, we are running.
Okay, I'll give me 2 minutes. Okay, 2 minutes. Jadi saudara-saudara sekalian, kalau saya simpulkan, maka pendekatan gerakan Islam generasi kedua, Amanah being an example here, saya tidak pernah mau kontras dengan parti lama saya. Cukup untuk saya mengatakan bahawa pendekatan kami yang disebutkan oleh Dr. Mazli tadi dan akan diterangkan dengan lebih lanjut oleh Ustaz Wan Ji adalah menjadikan Maqasid Syariah sebagai sumber, sebagai disiplin ilmu yang akan menetapkan, contohnya paling besar pada kami adalah bukannya persoalan penal code, tetapi meletakkan the supreme objective of Syariah in Maqasid is justice. Keduanya keadilan, keduanya adalah yang semua tadi, hafzul hurriyah dan yang and more than that, can I just that is Ibn Ashur's, Ibn Ashur's discusses this is the entire, this is how we look at Sharia now, at Maqasid Sharia. Preservation of the family system, freedom of belief, orderliness, civility, human rights, freedom and equality as objective of Islamic law, relevant to the theory of Maqasid. And we can go at length, everyone like Al-Qaradawi and others, they have been adding on. Maka dengan kata lain, kami berkeyakinan, given this is why some of us, you are good, you guys are good, but if you could only put Islam outside, let's have politics without Islam. And that has always been the kind of proposal from friends. Once upon a time, maybe also my good brother Chiwan. But now they understand where we are coming from, especially with Maqasid. Maqasid being what drives us to achieve what he said earlier. It is the highest purpose is, at the end of the day, the total well-being of man. Memakmurkan bumi, mensejahterakan umat manusia. That is the kind of narrative, that is the compelling objective of Sharia. And with that, as far as Sharia in this respect is concerned, there are two aspects. There are two domains. Okay, there are simply two-pronged. If I put promotion of goodness and prevention of harm to men. In all these 7 or 10 or 11 or 13, imperatives that are so critical to life, particularly given a country and a nation that is failing in all aspects of our governance. With that, I hope we will continue to discuss this in the next round. I thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zhu. It's an incredible task for both lecturer and politicians to give up their mind. So, Zairil, restrain yourself. Well, 15 minutes starts now.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening. I guess I'm the most unlikely speaker here, We have 3 ulama, 1 kafir ulama, and a DAP member. I'm sure all of you are also wondering the same question I'm asking myself. What is DAP doing with Maqasid Syariah? Why are we venturing into this topic? But the fact is that if you look at what's going on, not just in Malaysia, but all over the world, the exigencies of the political dynamics that are happening, I think, really necessitates us to understand and engage with political Islam, with the concepts, simply because, well, obviously here in Malaysia we live in a Muslim majority country, and we have seen how Islam has become a very defining feature, not only of people's personal lives, but also the political identities of Malaysians, of many Malaysians. And so for any political player in Malaysia, certainly in many parts of the world as well, especially in Muslim majority countries, you cannot be a relevant player if you do not be a part of this dialogue, and if you do not understand these concepts. So this is why it's very important, and in fact DAP has taken many steps towards, especially in the last few years, towards bridging this gap. So I think, as I said, I think political Islam, or Islam, has increasingly plays a very important role in public life. But unfortunately, a lot of its manifestation is extremely problematic. And if you look at generally the dominant views of Islam, especially in the political sphere, if you look at Malaysia, then of course PAS is the dominant Islamist party. Hopefully soon Amanah, but for now still PAS. And you see, one that is lack of a vision, that is lack of that is very exclusive, that's more parochial, has a dichotomous worldview, basically kafir, Muslim kafir, and so on and so forth. So the DAP especially being exposed, well, firstly, I think for many of our leaders, Islam itself, Sharia, all these concepts were quite new to them, and the exposure was just limited to basically PAS, right? So that's all a lot of our leaders knew about Islam from PAS, from our friends who were formerly from PAS, and so on and so forth. So we decided we need to learn more, and that's why earlier this year, twice this year actually, we sent a rombongan, a delegation to the Middle East, twice. We visited, led by Saudara Lim Kit Siang. I went, a few other MPs, including Teresa Kok, who is now in Parliament starting and ending her speeches with shukran. I hope she knows what it means. Yeah, creeping Islamism, yeah, there you go. But it has such a profound effect, and she's so happy everywhere she goes, shukran, shukran. Yeah. So we went to Jordan, Egypt, Tunisia, and Turkey, of course, to distribute DAP membership forms to the students there. Actually, we didn't bring any, but we keep in touch on Facebook. And it was very interesting. We wanted to learn how the societies there, these are not just Muslim majority, I mean, it's 99, 98% Muslim countries, yeah? With very small non-Muslim minorities. So we wanted to see how these almost fully Muslim majority countries, societies, deal with contemporary political, economic, social challenges, especially post-Arab Spring. And we wanted to see the role of Islam, especially, in all these aspects. I think it was a very fruitful trip. We managed to meet with many great leaders in these countries. For example, we met with former Turkish President, Dr. Abdullah Gül, also the Secretary General of the Ikhwanul Muslimun, the Muslim Brotherhood, who is now exiled and living in Istanbul because he's got a death sentence. If he goes back to Egypt, they'll chop his head or hang him. And we met with him. We met also with the former Egyptian Deputy Prime Minister, Dr. Ziad Bahaldin. We also, as Dr. Mazdi mentioned, met with Sheikh Rashid Ghannouchi in Tunisia, in his office in the Ennahda Party building. We also, very interestingly, had a chance to meet with one of the quartet that won the Nobel Peace Prize. the Tunisian General Labour Union. We met with the Deputy Secretary General 1 week after they won the Nobel Peace Prize. So it was very interesting discussions that we had in these countries. So I'd like to talk a bit about our experiences there, but I'll focus only on 2 countries, which are the most relevant. And these are the 2 Arab Spring countries. But if you see, the outcomes of their revolution are completely different. So I'll talk about Egypt and I'll talk about Tunisia. In Egypt, we all know January 25th, 2011, there was the mass protest, and it was Tahrir Square, and so on and so forth. People rose up, they protested, demonstrated against police brutality, lack of democratic space, oppression, corruption, economic issues, high unemployment, food inflation, low wages, and so on and so forth. And we all know what happened after that, right? A very long-standing dictatorship was ended. Hosni Mubarak was deposed, and then there was elections. And of course, being the most organized movement, the Ikhwan, the Muslim Brotherhood, very naturally managed to win the elections. And then we had the Muhammad Morsi, who is an Islamist, member of the Muslim Brotherhood, elected to the presidency of Egypt in June 2012. Now, following the election of Dr. Morsi, Mr. Morsi, a new constitution was created in 2012. And of course, naturally, this new constitution had institutional safeguards. There were provisions against torture, detention without trial, and so on and so forth. But significantly, there was also within this new constitution in 2012, under the Muslim Brotherhood leadership, a widening of the role of Islam and religious institutions, and also, I would say, an attempt of state capture, in a sense that they now tried to define constitutionally the version of Islam. Probably Morsi had a chat with Jakim before he did the constitution. But he's taking lessons from them for sure. But there we go. An attempt using constitutional provisions to define Islam. They, for example, I'll give some examples here. They gave immunity to the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar and basically gave Al-Azhar a legal, a legislative and political role. Previously, they were completely independent from the state. In that sense, but after the Constitution of 2012, the Supreme Scholars Committee of Al-Azhar had a legislative role. Anything to do with Sharia had to get approval from this committee, and the Grand Imam was given immunity and so on. So at the same time, there was an article that also tried to define very specifically the principles of Sharia, and defined it in the Sunni jurisprudence. So there basically you had a constitution but which was very divisive, because you still had a secular elite, you still had other forces and movements within Egypt who were very much opposed to these changes, which maybe were done very fast and a bit too strong. But at the same time, also because the economic problems were not resolved. So I think that sort of created a perfect storm, plus Morsi at the time also passed a decree which granted the president himself full powers, purportedly to protect the Constituent Assembly, but essentially basically making himself, I mean, people were comparing him to previous dictators, or the pharaoh even. So all these things, I think all these things put together created a lot of opposition from secularists, from military, and then there was huge protests. In fact, some say the numbers that protested were even more than against Mubarak. But it doesn't matter. In the end, we all know what happened. There was a coup. General al-Sisi basically got rid of Morsi, and subsequently later won election and is now the president of Egypt. And a new constitution was created last year in 2014, which actually then rolled back. They removed a lot of the clauses that widened the scope of Islam within the state. So all that was reversed after al-Sisi took over, LCC took over, and there was a new constitution. And of course, we all know Morsi and the Ikhwan allies and so on. They've been charged, arrested, and sentenced to death. So very, very polarizing, you know, each sort of taking vengeance on the other. Now we look at the other example, which is even more interesting, and we talk about Tunisia. Now Tunisia is actually where the Arab Spring started in December of 2010, of course with the burning of Muhammad Bouazizi. And we had the same situation, high unemployment, food inflation, a very young population with Facebook, but not much in terms of money, corruption, no civil liberties, and so on. So there was civil resistance. I see 5 minutes, I'll go fast. Civil resistance, followed by toppling of the Ben Ali regime, and followed by free and democratic elections. And of course, again, just like in Egypt, being the most organized, the Islamist movement in Tunisia, which is called the Ennahda, which is sort of the sister organization of the Ikhwan, managed to win power convincingly in the election. They won a plurality. And following that, following the victory of the Ennahda movement, soon there was an impasse. They were trying to create a new constitution for Tunisia, but there was a sort of a stalemate, because you still had, again, a powerful secular elite. You had other movements as well, other parties, other interests as well, which did not agree to a lot of the things that the Ennahda maybe wanted to do. But here's where it took a different twist. Whereas in Egypt, we all know what happened, I explained earlier. In Tunisia, what happened was civil society stepped in the form of the Quartet. The General Labor Union, the Bar, the lawyers, and two other organizations teamed up, created a national dialogue, brought in the Ennahda, brought in all the parties, sat down, and for many months they decided on the next action. And what happened after that was amazing. The Ennahda, as the Islamist party, and they had the plurality, they had the biggest bloc in parliament, they could have created the constitution the way they wanted to, just like in Egypt with Morsi. But they decided to step back. They actually resigned from government to allow a technocratic government, a government of basically technocrats, to take over until the new constitution was formed. And the new constitution was formed without specific Sharia laws. In fact, none at all. So what has resulted is a civil state with an Islamic identity. Actually similar to Malaysia. In the constitution, Islam is defined as the official religion of the country. After all, it's a 99% Muslim country. But there are no Sharia laws. Sharia is not the source of legislation in Tunisia. It's all based on civil laws. And it's very interesting. I'll quote Sheikh Rashid Ghanouchi here. And he says, we could have continued without them. He was referring to the other parties and so on and so forth. We would have produced a constitution for the Ennahda, but we would have produced a constitution for the Ennahda party and not for the Tunisian people. So we took a difficult path towards consensus. So there we go. Very different outcome. And when we were there and we had a dialogue, I personally asked Sheikh Rashid, and I said, but how do you reconcile, as an Islamist movement, when you took power, how do you tell your followers that you did not implement Sharia? And his reply to me was, but we are not out of Sharia. Tunisia is in Sharia. Sharia is democracy, human rights, justice, equality. Sharia is not a set of laws. Sharia is a set of values. And I thought it was a very elegant response. Essentially saying, yeah, we don't have Sharia laws, we don't have Hudud or whatever it is, but whatever laws we have, our constitution is completely Islamic. It doesn't say that it's Islamic in the sense that you've got all these Sharia laws, but it is in line, completely in line with Islamic values. And that's what, when you talk about Maqasid Syariah, that's what it means, the high intention of Sharia. What does Sharia want to achieve? Equality, freedom, poverty eradication, free market. DAP is with free market also, no problem. Huh? Hey. Anytime, online boleh download. And today, actually, the Ennahda, they are the second largest bloc in parliament. They've already had a second round of elections, but they only hold one ministerial post. They are actually stepping back very willingly. It is very interesting because, in Malaysian context, you cannot imagine anyone actually, staying away from power, but they are actually doing it. They are doing it in the name of unity, in the name of making things progress and move forward for Tunisia. I mean, I think it's very big, and we were very impressed. So that's why we see very divergent outcomes. Two countries that experienced revolution, both toppled dictatorships. One has ended up in a stalemate. Egypt is now still stuck. You've got basically a pseudo-dictator again, whereas Tunisia has won the Nobel Peace Prize. So two very different outcomes. So just to conclude, 1 minute, I think there is a great need to, when we talk about Islam, Sharia, and political Islam especially, for us to push the need to shape a bigger, that is a vision of Islam that is yang berjiwa besar, that is gracious, magnanimous, inclusive, certainly not exclusive. Somebody was saying to me yesterday, actually, he was saying, I look at all the rhetoric that's coming out from Muslim and Muslim leaders these days, and it seems like the Muslims are like the Catholics before Reformation, They're just focused on very narrow aspects of ritual, no sight of the larger picture, and they just all want to return to some medieval past, right? Whereas it shouldn't be like that. As Wong Chin Huat, our Cafe Ulama, said earlier, Islam is rahmatul lil alamin, right? It's rahmat for all. It should be attractive. Islam should be attractive to the non-Muslims. But right now, as it is, I think most non-Muslims in Malaysia are scared of Islam, scared of Islamic laws and so on and so forth. Islam should mean more, even Muslims. Islam should mean progress and modernity, not going back to dark ages. I mean, it should be inclusive. It should focus on commonalities instead of polarizing people. But what we have here in Malaysia, of course, is the fact that non-Muslims, Muslim and Malay in Malaysia is tied in, so it's the same thing, are relegated to second-class citizens. And it's completely tied into the political agenda as well. So that's where the danger is, and that's why also it is important for DAP to understand this, so that moving forward, whatever approach that we take is also nuanced and sensitive to these very important questions. So thank you very much.
A speaker that keeps to the time, I think. So big hand to him. Next, we jemput Ustaz. Ustaz nak datang sini tukar tempat dengan Dr. Zul sikit. So, okay, Ustaz punya sangat panjang. So, memang Ustaz kan? So, tapi dah ada bincang nak macam mana fokuskan. Kerana yang penting adalah kita ada dengar apa pandangan daripada Parti Amanah, Parti DAP, sekarang Parti PKR.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat malam. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin, wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil mursalin wa ala alihi wasahbihi ajma'in wa ba'd. Ustaz Wong, Ustaz Dr. Mazli, Ustaz Zairil dengan Ustaz Dr. Zul. Bila panggil bincang maqasid, semua tu ustaz lah. Maqasid syariah ni orang suka bincang sekarang. Bila kita bincang pasal maqasid syariah, rupa-rupanya berminat pun DAP pun berminat nak bincang pasal maqasid syariah. Sebenarnya saya terkejut kenapa DAP je nak belajar Islam, nak belajar bentuk negara yang baik tu pergi ke Tunisia. Kenapa nak pergi di Mesir, kenapa nak pergi Jordan? Sebab ini semua negara-negara gagal, bukan negara yang baik. Kita kalau nak belajar, nak jadi baik, kita kena pergi tempat negara yang lebih baik. Saya rasa tempat yang terbaik untuk belajar tentang negara yang baik ini adalah Sweden. Itu lagi baik. Kenapa nak pergi belajar kat negara yang macam ni? Tapi mungkin sebab dilema DAP adalah dengan UMNO, ataupun dilema DAP adalah PAS, maka dia nak menjawab dengan PAS dan UMNO, maka dia pergilah cari negara Arab. Saya rasa lah. Sebenarnya apa itu politik lah. Sebab saya punya slide ni panjang sangat. Sebab saya ingat dah macam pembentangah kertas kerja kan. Rupanya 15 minit sahaja. Makanya saya akan simpulkan dengan cara yang lebih mudah insya-Allah. Kadang yang saya mampu insya-Allah. Nombor satu, bila kita bincang pasal politik, politik ni bukan isu kebenaran. Politik adalah isu kebaikan. Benda ni pernah dikupas oleh Al-Imam Ibn Sina. Dia ada menyatakan bahawasanya bila kita bincang al-hikmah, hikmatan. Hikmah ada dua, kebijaksanaan ada dua. Yang pertama al-hikmah daripada sudut al-haq, kebenaran. Yang ni selalu orang bincang dalam bab akidah. Ada pula satu lagi, dia bincang pasal al-amal, praktikal, bentuk perbuatan. Yang tu adalah isu kebaikan. Sebab ada benda tu dia adalah baik tapi dia tak benar. Dan terpaksa untuk tidak benar dengan tujuan untuk kebaikan. Contohnya kita buat misal contoh. Ada seorang bapa yang mempunyai seorang anak yang dia cukup sayang. Tiba-tiba dia ni pergi belajar. Anak dia belajar luar negara dan anak dia accident dan meninggal. Kawan dia telefon kepada anak dia nak maklumkan kepada anak dia, kepada bapa dia yang anak dah meninggal. Tapi dalam tanya khabar awal tu dia dapati bapa tu sedang sakit jantung. Ketika itu apakah kawan itu perlu berkata benar ataupun tidak? Demi kebaikan dia terpaksa berbohong. Bermaksud bila sebut politik dia bukan isu kebenaran. Sebab tu saya tak setuju bila PKS datang Malaysia baru ni dia bercakap tentang politik. Dia kata antara benar dan tidak benar. Pada saya tak betul. Mungkin keras sangat tu. Kurang tepat. Kurang tepat. Pada saya adalah isu baik ataupun tak baik. Sebab bunuh orang bukan satu benda yang baik. Tapi kadang-kadang dalam beberapa keadaan mungkin bunuh itu satu keperluan. Maka wujudlah hukuman-hukuman bunuh. Sebagai contoh kan. Bermaksud bila kita bincang pasal politik, dia adalah bincang pasal isu kebaikan. Bila kita sebut kebaikan, bila kita tengok dalam tradisi Islam sendiri, apa itu politik? Al-Qardawi dia menyatakan al-qiyamu ala syai'in bima yaslahuhu dalam kitab dia Syariah Syariah fi nusus Syariah wa Maqasidiha. Dia menyatakan, dia kata politik adalah melakukan satu perkara yang boleh memberikan kepada rakyat. Apa-apa pun tindakan memberikan kebaikan kepada rakyat, maka itulah politik yang diiktiraf di dalam Islam. Sahabat kata Yusuf Al-Qaradawi. Ada pula yang kedua tokoh yang agak menarik juga, namanya Allal Al-Fasi. Dia tulis satu kitab, nama kitabnya Maqasid Syariah wa Makarimuha. Dia menyatakan bila dikatakan sebagai politik Islam dia mesti ada tiga perkara. Yang pertama adalah tahqiqul haq. Kita memberikan hak pada mereka yang berhak. Rakyat ada hak, kita kena bagi hak. Cina ada hak, Melayu ada hak, India ada hak, Muslim ada hak, bukan Islam ada hak, kita kena bagi hak. Sebab Nabi Muhammad kata innallaha a'ta kulladzi haqqin haqqah. Allah Taala berikan hak pada mereka yang berhak. Yang kedua adalah iqrarul adli, mengakui keadilan. Siapa-siapa pun melakukan keadilan kita kena akui walaupun dilakukan oleh orang bukan Islam. Quran sendiri memuji orang bukan Islam melakukan kebaikan. Kita baca dalam Quran dalam surah Ali Imran, Allah Taala kata wa min ahlil kitabi man in ta'manhu biqintarin yu'addihi ilaik. Apabila orang ada sebilangan ahli kitab itu apabila diberikan amanah dengan duit yang begitu banyak, dia tunaikan amanah itu dengan baik, dipuji oleh Al-Quran. Maknanya Quran memuji orang Yahudi Yahudi bukan DAP, Yahudi. DAP Nabi Muhammad bina kerajaan dengan Yahudi bukan dengan DAP. Itu pun okey, Malaysia dengan DAP jadi masalah. Pelik tu. Sebenarnya itu ada problem besar. Sebenarnya pemikiran dia ada masalah, orang kata macam tu. Okey, tinggalkan tu. Sini masa tak panjang. Okey, jadi iqrarul adl, lakukan keadilan. Kita kena akui keadilan. Bila kita kena akui keadilan bermaksud automatik kita kena melakukan keadilan. Dalam Quran, Allah Subhanahu wa taala memuji negara orang bukan Islam dalam dua ayat. Yang pertama baldatun thayyibatun wa rabbun ghafur. Negara yang baik dipayungi keampunan dosa oleh Allah SWT. Kerajaan ini bukan kerajaan Islam, Balqis perempuan dan tidak beragama Islam. Dalam Quran. Dalam ayat yang lain, kita baca dalam surah Hud ayat 117. Allah Taala kata wa makana rabbuka liyuhlikal qura bizulmin wa ahluha muslihun. Kami tidak akan binasakan ahli sebuah kerajaan itu secara zalim kalau rakyat dia saling melakukan kebaikan. Quran surah Hud. Yusuf Al-Qaradawi disebut dalam kitab Duwarul Qiyam wal Akhlaq fi al-Iqtisad al-Islami. Dia menyatakan yang dimasukkan kerajaan itulah kerajaan orang bukan Islam. Dan diungkapkan benda yang sama oleh seorang ulama yang muktabar pada zaman dulu, nama Imam Fakhruddin Ar-Razi dalam kitab Mafatihul Ghaib. Maksudnya Quran sendiri telah mengakui bahawasanya kerajaan yang baik tak semestinya diperintah oleh orang Islam. Kadang-kadang bukan Islam tapi kebaikan kepada rakyat itu dapat. Itu pun diakui di dalam Al-Quran. Kita buka pula dalam surah Isra ayat 16 sebagai contoh. Allah Subhanahu wa taala nyatakan antara kerosakan itu boleh berlaku apabila pemerintah itu abaikan tanggungjawab terhadap rakyat. Wa idza aradna an nuhlika qaryatan amarna mutrafiha fafasaqu fiha fa haqqa 'alaiha al-faqa fadammarnaha tadmira. Allah Ta'ala kata, bila kami nak membinasakan sebuah kerajaan, kami bagi perintah pada orang-orang besar untuk tunaikan amanah dia. Kebajikan dia, zakat dia, haji dia, jangan rembat duit yatimnya, jangan rembat dia yatim lah, begitulah contohlah kan. Jadi dia kena jaga semua tu. Bila jaga tu, kalau dia tak jaga, apa kata Allah? Fahaqa 'alaihal qawl fadammarnaha tadmira. Kami akan hancurkan kerajaan tu sehancur-hancurnya. Maksudnya Quran cukup clear bila membincangkan tentang konsep kerajaan. Dalam Quran Allah Ta'ala ada nyatakan pemerintah itu tak semestinya ulama. Inna khaira man istajartal qawiyul amin. Sesungguhnya orang lebih layak untuk dilantik jadi pekerja adalah al-qawi al-amin. Orang yang ada kemampuan dan satu lagi dia ada amanah, bukan peti amanah, Dr. Sul. Dia kena keadilan, sebab keadilan gabungan antara amanah dengan qawi boleh jadi keadilan. Kena gabung kan? Okey, maksudnya kalau kita tengok dua perkara. Ulama tak ulama, ini bukan tradisi ahli sunnah wal jamaah. Itu clear nombor satu. Orang ahli sunnah wal jamaah dia tidak akan mensyaratkan pemerintah itu mesti ulama. Tapi kalau kita pergi ke Iran, memang tradisi dia ada ulama. Sebab dia terpengaruh dengan konsep Imam Maksum, wilayatul faqih. Wilayatul faqih itu bahasa Iran, terjemahan Melayu kepimpinan ulama. Sebenarnya kan? Nah, macam mana kata mesti ulama? Itu ada satu problem bila kita bincang tentang politik dalam kerangka orang Islam. Type. Tahu banyak. Tapi menariknya ada perkataan daripada Al-Imam Ibn Qayyim Al-Jauziyah. Dia menyatakan, "Idza ra'aita hunaka amaratil 'adli fatamma wajhullah." Kalau kamu lihat di sana ada tanda-tanda keadilan, kamu kena tahu di sana ada syariat Allah. Bermaksud dalam komentar yang dikemukakan oleh Imam Ibn Qayyim Al-Jauziyah, konsep syariah ni dia tak terlalu kecil sangat, dia besar sebenarnya. Kita bila sebut syariah nampak hudud, qisas, ta'zir, hudud, qisas, ta'zir, hudud, qisas, ta'zir. Padahal bila kita sebut syariah, berapa banyak perkara syariah yang kita telah abaikan. Lawan rasuah contoh. Membina negara yang baik, good governance sebagai contoh. Ini pun tuntutan syariah. Melaksanakan hisbah yang di Penang ada Penang Cat, di Selangor ada Sel Cat. Alhamdulillah, kerajaan DEP dengan kerajaan PKR. Dan tidak ada di Kelantan yang hisbah. Tapi itu pun tuntutan syariah. Bermaksud bila kita sebut politik, apa-apa pun tidak akan memberikan kebaikan kepada rakyat. Alhamdulillah, itu pun diraikan, dihormati dan diakui di dalam Al-Quran. Cuma bila kita sebut politik, dia dalam Maqasid Syariah, dia ada dua tajuk besar dalam dua perbincangan. Dia bincang dalam Maqasid Syariah, iaitu Saddu Zara'i, satu lagi Fathul Zara'i. Apa itu Saddu Zara'i? Pada Zara'i ini maksudnya dia menutup pintu-pintu yang haram. Fathul Zara'i membuka pintu-pintu yang haram. Pintu haram ni kadang-kadang dia kena buka. Iza daqal amru tas'a wa idza tas'a daqa. Ada satu kaedah fiqh. Bila benda tu sempit sangat, dia kena buka sikit. Bila dia terbuka sangat, nanti dulu. Berlaku kerosakan tidak, dia kena tutup balik. Itu ada dalam fiqh Islam. Contoh bagi Saddu Zara'i ni, dia Saddu Zara'i ni asal daripada kaedah ma'adda ilal harami fa huwa haram. Perkara yang boleh bawa kepada haram, hukum dia juga adalah haram. Type. Jual apple adalah halal, tapi jual apple kepada pembuat arak haram. Islam mengharamkan arak. Islam haramkan arak. Makanya apple tu boleh buat arak. Apple tu kita jual kat kedai, dia tak ada masalah hukum haram. Tetapi kalau pembeli itu adalah pembuat arak dan beli itu untuk membuat arak, dia ada implikasi kepada haram. Maksudnya halal tapi boleh jadi haram sebab takut berlaku kerosakan. Bagi salam kepada orang bukan Islam, kepada orang Islam sendiri, tak salah. Assalamualaikum, waalaikumsalam, tak jadi masalah pun. Tiba-tiba orang kata haram, tak boleh bagi salam pada orang bukan Islam. Sebab pada zaman dulu, salam ni dijadikan sebagai alat untuk menghina. Bila ada orang pergi jumpa Nabi Muhammad, dia tak kata Assalamualaikum, dia pergi sebut Assalamualaikum. Assalamualaikum, selamat sejahtera. Assalamualaikum, pergi mampus, dia kata. Takkan kita ya, waalaikumsalam, bagusnya kamu. Kan? Jadi Assalamualaikum, waalaikumsalam, mampus sama. Ataupun waalaikum, kau pun sama. Macam itulah kan. Jangan jawab terus. Maksudnya dia ada Saddu Zara'i tu, tutup pintu haram. Tahu? Sebab dah angkat 5 minit belakang. Boleh sindir. Cuma saya nak sebut sini, ada Saddu Zara'i dalam kerangka kerajaan, iaitu saya kata perlu dianggap sebagai penting membina negara accountability, transparency, integriti dan sebagainya. Kalau dalam tradisi Islam dia ada hisbah sebagai contoh. Al-Imam Umar Abdul Aziz. Umar Aziz ni seorang yang dikagumi oleh Lim Guan Eng. Lim Guan Eng cukup minat dengan Umar Abdul Aziz. Cumanya kurang berminat oleh orang-orang PAS di kali ini. Diminat oleh sebelum ni. Okey, Umar Abdul Aziz ni dia ada accountability, dia ada transparency, dia ada kehebatan dalam pentadbiran. Satu hari, dia ni berjalan, dia tak ada apple tau. Dia nak makan apple, dia terliur nak makan apple. Tapi sebab khalifah yang terlalu zuhud menyebabkan gaji-gaji ditolak semua berbulan tabung kerajaan, dia tak ada kemampuan untuk nak beli apple sebiji. Makanya dia tengok ada seorang budak makan buah apple, dia terliur nak makan. Ada seorang pegawai kerajaan beli apple bagi pada dia. Bila beli apple bagi pada dia, dia tak nak terima. Pegawai itu kata, makanlah. Nabi Muhammad terima hadiah. Sahabat Nabi terima sedekah. Dia kata, Nabi Muhammad pada era Nabi memberi hadiah itu tak pernah timbul isu masalah pada kerajaan. Pada zaman sahabat pun serupa. Tapi pada zaman aku, kalau aku menerima apple, itu sudah jadi rasuah. Ni Umar Abdul Aziz cerita ni adalah kitab Fathul Bari Bisyarhil Bukhari, Imam Ibn Hajar Al-Asqalani. Bukan Ustaz Batu Bari. Boleh tahu. Maksudnya dia kena apa tak? Umar Al-Aziz. Okey, kita pergi yang kedua, Umar Al-Khattab radhiyallahu an. Umar Al-Khattab dia letak satu dasar kerajaan. Siapa yang jadi pegawai kerajaan, dia punya gaji kalau 2000, dia tak boleh terlibat dengan perniagaan. Dia lantik seorang sahabat untuk jadi gubernur dekat Bahrain. Nama gubernur tu adalah Abu Hurairah radhiyallahu an. Baik. Abu Hurairah radhiyallahu an ni, dia ni ada kuda 2 ekor. 2 ekor kuda duduk dekat Bahrain tu. Takkan dia nak tengok sesaja, dia pun macam orang juga. Jadi kuda jantan, kuda betina, beranak pinak banyak sangat, dia jual, dia jadi kaya. Orang report pada Umar. Orang macam mana Umar kau jadi kaya? Kau beritahu pada Umar tentang Abu Hurairah. Abu Hurairah datang, dia kata, ya adu Allah wa ya adu wal Islam. Kau ni musuh Allah lah, rembat kata rakyat. Dia pergi sound terus. Bila sound, apa yang berlaku pada Abu Hurairah? Dia kata, tak, aku tidak rembat harta rakyat. Bila dia kata tak rembat harta rakyat, berlaku siasatan yang dikatakan sebagai hisbah, selkat, pedengkat tadi. Dalam siasatan membuktikan bahawasanya dia tidak bersalah. Bermaksud macam mana pentadbiran Umar Al-Khattab. Yang saya nak cadangkan sadu zara'i. Kita jangan duk mudah-mudah dengan hisbah. Kita kena serius untuk melaksanakan hisbah. Kita kena serius. Begitu juga dalam isu keselamatan negara dari serangan pengganas sebagai contoh. Tapi dalam masa yang sama kena akui apa yang namakan mempertahankan diri daripada pihak yang dituduh. Itu pun satu benda juga. Sebab kadang-kadang kita ni, dia buat sosma di YSA sebelum ni, dia tangkap kawan tu, kadang-kadang kawan tu tak ada hak untuk membela diri. Itu pun satu problem. Tapi kita tak boleh nak abaikan, pengganas itu pun mungkin boleh berlaku. Okey, kesihatan oral bersih dan sebagainya. Ada satu lagi saya nak bawa, masa 3 minit, dia angkat 2-3 kali. Ada Fatul Zara'i, dia kena buka pintu-pintu tertentu untuk membenarkan mencapainya kebaikan yang lagi banyak. Okey, contoh, apa hukum tengok awet? La tutbi'in nazratan nazrah fa inna lakal ula wa laysal kal akhirah. Kata Nabi kepada Ali bin Abi Talib. Kata Nabi, la tutbi'in nazratan nazrah, jangan kamu ekori penglihatan yang pertama dengan yang kedua. Fa inna lakal ula, yang pertama tu hak kamu. Dia tengok straight jelah. Kan? Wa laysal kal akhirah, yang kedua bukan hak kamu dah. Okey, mana tak boleh? Persoalan dia, apabila ada seorang sahabat dia nak berkahwin, dia jumpa Nabi tanya, tengok belum? Dah okey, pergi tengok. Kenapa pergi tengok? Untuk memastikan kebahagiaan rumah tangga. Jadi yang tak boleh tu jadi boleh. Sebab kebaikan, kemaslahatan lagi besar tadi. Contoh lain, sebut kalimah kufur, tak boleh. Tetapi kalau sebut kufur sebab nak menjaga nyawa, dibolehkan. Contoh, okey, tengok aurat, tak boleh. Masuk hospital, selak, punggung pun nampak, contohlah kan. Tak boleh. Tetapi sebab rawatan dalam perubatan, dibolehkan. Walaupun tak boleh, tapi dibolehkan sebab kemaslahatan lagi besar. Okey. Dalam politik pada hari ini, saya nak dilarang, ni bukan. Perempuan menjadi hakim mahkamah syariah, wajar dibincang. Boleh ataupun tidak? Sebagai contoh. Non-Muslim sebagai Perdana Menteri, ini DAP mesti suka. Kan? Contohlah kan. Saya kena bincang pada ni. Sebab sekarang ni, orang Islam jadi pemerintah, tak semestinya rakyat jadi baik. Itu realiti yang berlaku. Bahkan ini bukan di Malaysia. Bahkan berlaku juga di negara-negara lain. Kadang-kadang ada orang bukan Islam, dia berjaya memberi kebaikan kepada rakyat. Jadi wajar dibincang. Ziarah rumah ibadat. Saya nak cadang lah kadang-kadang. Biar hari Jumaat, padri datang ke masjid. Habis main Jumaat, padri bercakap tentang agama Kristian, ulama bercakap tentang agama Islam. Mari hari Sabtu Ahad pula, orang ulama Islam pergi ke gereja. Pergi ke kuil, pergi. Lepas dia orang bercakap tentang agama dia orang, kita bercakap pula tentang agama Islam. Perlu konsep ta'arafu tu dipopularkan. Dari sudut keagamaan. Sebab prejudis kita antara agama lain, antara agama kita agama lain sebab kita tidak memahami. Kita tak tahu Hindu tu apa, Buddha tu apa, Kristian tu apa, Cina tu apa, India tu, kita tak tahu. Cina kenapa sini? Jadi nak cerita dia, konsep tu kita kena suburkan. Jangan menganggap pergi rumah ibadat haram. Ini semua mental block. Dia kena terbuka sikit. Okey, wacana debat keagamaan dan budaya perlu disuburkan. Isu yakin pun satu masalah. Saya kena bincang ni, sudut Fatul Zara'i. Kenapa? Sebab isu anjing yang timbul Syekh Azmi itu, usaha dia cukup bagus tau. Sebab dalam hadis Nabi telah mempamerkan macam mana ada orang diampunkan dosa dengan sebab bagi minum kepada anjing. Kita pegang anjing jadi bising. Siapa yang bising? Jakim. Kau nak hentam Jakim lah ni. Kan? So, tapi isu Yapim, dia boleh backup pula. Contoh, dia nak marah ke orang. Okey. Okey, ada pula ayat pasal masa dah tengok 1 minit, dia dah marah. Okey, sekarang ni, dia ada isu ruang peribadi dengan ruang awam. Saya benda ni wajar dibincang tau. Saya nak bagi tahu sebenarnya dalam tradisi Islam, ulama Islam tak pernah mendebatkan tentang ruang bukan tak pernah, mungkin pernah, tapi dia tak pernah detail tau. Ruang peribadi dengan ruang awam. Dan kita jangan terikat dengan pandangan ulama-ulama zaman dulu tau. Jangan mesti Al-Ghazali. Kenapa Imam Ghazali bukan Imam Ghazali jadi otak? Apa kita tak ada otak? Contohlah kan. Kena Asy-Syatibi je. Kenapa? Sebab zaman dia orang tak serupa dengan zaman sekarang. Imam Ibn Ashur, dia memberanikan diri membincangkan tentang konsep al-huriyah, kebebasan. Dalam tradisi Islam, yang bincang dululah tentang Mu'tazilah. Yang tu berbincang dalam kerangka tentang Tuhan dengan manusia. Tapi bila bincang kerangka politik, yang pergi bincang tu Tahir Ibn Ashur. Dia memberanikan diri bincang. Bagi contoh. Kita sekarang kena bincang lah benda macam ni. Bila kita tengok contoh, kat Malaysia pernah timbul isu sekejap, sekodeng. Pergi mengintai, pergi kat hotel orang ketuk pintu kan. Ini skodeng. Skodeng tu agak negatif kan. Yang dibuat oleh orang Jabatan Agama Islam tu masalah dia. Okey, bila dia buat, rupa-rupanya benda tu tak kena pun dengan kehendak syariah. Macam mana kita boleh tahu? Bila Dr. Asri Zainal Abidin, dia pandai-pandai pergi tulis artikel, bising, dan lebih-lebih lagi masa tu dia mufti, menyebabkan baru kita tahu. Rupa-rupanya ketuk hotel tu satu benda yang bercanggah dengan syariah. Baru kita tahu. Maksudnya ruang awam dengan ruang peribadi ada perbezaan di situ. Apa lagi? Kita bahas tentang hukum zina kena 4 orang saksi. 4 orang saksi adil, tengok dengan mata kepala. Bermaksud ada ruang peribadi, ada ruang awam di situ. Sebab kenapa orang adil pula, orang baik, kaki masjid pergi tengok. Boleh? Maksud teruk sangatlah amalan tu. Dia melibatkan orang lain. Nampak kan? Kita akan faham ada ruang peribadi, ada ruang awam. Tidak dihukumkan bunuh kepada orang murtad. Yang sebelum ni kita tahu, bunuh orang murtad, membadalah dinahu faqtuluh, siapa yang tukar agama bunuh. Kita kaji tengok banyak kajian-kajian ulama, contoh Dr. Sa'id Ar-Ramadan Al-Buti, Taha Jabir Al-Awani, debat-debat rupa-rupanya dia menyatakan yang dikatakan bunuh berlaku pada zaman Abu Bakar bukan semata-mata murtad, tetapi murtad yang ada muharabah, pemberontakan. Nampak? Maksudnya maknanya ada ruang peribadi, ada ruang awam di situ. Soal kebebasan lebih-lebih lagi. Benda ni Tuhan Ibn Ashur dia ada kupas panjang dalam buku dia lah tentang Maqasid Syariah Islamiyah. Dalam buku tu dia membahaskan tentang apa itu al-huriyah, kebebasan. Sejauh mana kebebasan itu dibolehkan dan betul ke ada penghalang bagi kebebasan ataupun sebenarnya kebebasan itu yang dikatakan undang-undang itu bukan menghalang kebebasan tetapi tidak mahu menafikan kebebasan orang lain pula. Contohlah kan. Jadi perbincangan-perbincangan macam ni pada saya perlu kita kena bincang. Okey. Cuma ada beberapa perkara yang kita kena fikir untuk atasi. Contoh macam perbezaan budaya dan agama. Tu berlaku polemik besar dekat Malaysia. Contoh pakaian menjolok mata. Ini pun jadi isu. Ataupun dalam isu hari perayaan agama. Apabila azan kuat, Penang kan. Azan tak ini isu bukan Penang, bukan isu azan. Isu baca Quran kuat tu. Nabi tak pernah buat, sahabat tak pernah buat, Malaysia buat. Semua ahli bid'ah semua ni. Pandai-pandai dia buat kan. Lepas tu pergi ceramah tu kena pasang kuat-kuat biar orang kampung dengar. Padahal orang kampung bukan nak dengar apa, pergi maki lagi ada. Kan? Itu berlaku. Itu pun ada isu ruang peribadi, ruang awam di situ yang perlu kita bincang. Okey, orang Islam pergi sembelih lembu korban di hadapan khalayak. Apakah orang bukan Islam, Hindu sebagai contoh boleh komplain ataupun tidak? Okey, kalau komplain tiba-tiba orang Islam ni pula dia nak komplain. Orang Hindu pergi dekat Batu Cave. Boleh komplain ke tidak? Rasa benda tu perlu dibincangkan secara baik. Rasa itu yang kita kena suburkan. Jadi pada saya penyelesaian ni mungkin kita kena bincang kontrak sosial tu satu. Dan satu lagi mungkin dialog budaya dan agama perlu disuburkan. Sebab kita nak pergi pada konsep asal bagi politik iaitu memberi kebaikan kepada rakyat. Cukup, masa pun dah lebih. Wallahualam. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Saya sangat pasti ramai di sini yang tak pernah dengar hujah-hujah ini mendapat pencerahan yang cukup luar biasa. Mungkin anda tak pernah fikirkan syariah dalam perspektif ini. Jadi satu amaran mungkin tuan-tuan akan dijemput ke tempat-tempat lain untuk buat pencerahan yang sama. Okey, kita sekarang menjemput rakan-rakan kita ke bawah dan discussion kita ke depan sekarang. Saudari Cynthia, Saudari Chow Ying dan Datuk Syaifuddin. Ya. Turun bawah sekarang. Kita kena tukar tempat sikit. Okey, kita akan memberikan masa 15 minit juga. Tapi dia boleh ambil masa yang lebih singkat. Tugas discussion kita, tugas discussion kita adalah memberi pandangan mereka terhadap apa yang telah dihujahkan tadi dan juga tanya soalan. Itu yang penting. Kerana penceramah panelis kita tadi mungkin cakap terlalu banyak tapi ada soalan yang tak sempat disentuh, maka this is the time for you to ask the question. Your job is to grill them and force the best answer out of them. Right? So Cynthia is the founding director of C4, very explosive Center for Combating Corruptions and Cronyism. And the best part is that C4 actually enjoyed cooperation from MSSC. You know, with such a politically incorrect name, you still make your head late. So, Cynthia?
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Yeah, it's a bit broken. Okay, my name is Cynthia, as Chin Huat introduced me. I am one of the founding directors of the Center to Combat Corruption and Cronyism. You all know C4 is an explosive. It reminds us of a corruption scandal that has not been resolved yet. It's about the kapal selam yang tidak boleh selam. You all know about it, right? Okay, when I was invited to be a discussant, honestly, I felt really a bit out of place. How do I fit in? How does the work of corruption, membanteras rasuah, fit into Maqasid Syariah? But after listening to all these learned speakers, I realized that it's actually the central theme. It is core. It's one of the core pillars, one of the core foundations of an inclusive Islamic set of values, which puts good governance, which puts fighting corruption, which puts instilling integrity values at the center of the whole system of administration. So it was a very learning session from all the ustaz, the ulama, the clever academicians, and so on. But I think I don't really need to state the obvious, because they have stated the obvious. They have said that good governance, clean governance is at the heart of Maqasid Syariah. But perhaps my job, as Chin Huat said, is to be a bit provocative and to ask current questions, because the whole thing that I started to reflect on is our current situation in this country. Without having to say too much, I think we all probably agree that the politics in our country cannot get messier, or perhaps it's already so messed up it cannot get worse. We are at a real crossroads in that sense. We have real political crisis on the ruling Barisan Nasional, especially in UMNO, and we have a super political crisis on the opposition side. Everything is broken apart. So this is a chance to redefine, this is a chance to develop a real national dialogue based on Maqasid Syariah and based on principles of universality, commonality, fighting corruption, democratic principles, and so on. So I just wanted to prod a few questions in terms of Pakatan Harapan's position on, I know, I feel the heat coming out already on this side. What is Pakatan Harapan's real position on Maqasid Syariah? Because if it means fighting corruption, building good governance is the central theme of the whole thing, what would you make of the 2.6 billion into our Prime Minister's account? Obviously, it is un-Islamic, from what I learned just now. But I would like a confirmation of that. Would political donations be acceptable within Maqasid Syariah? Would we need to regulate it within political Islam? I learned something else, which I'm actually very happy to learn, that the teachings actually encourage business, free market. So what's the position on TPP, for example? So these are current concerns, because TPP is something that the Malaysian government is going to sign. I don't think we can get out of it. Is it Islamic to have free trade pacts? And in TPP, there is a chapter on fighting corruption, very clear on procurement, fighting corruption. So there are some positive things that come out of it. But how do we contextualize it within the Islamic teachings? For Dr. Zul, Amanah, I'm really sorry, he's really my good friend, but I do want to prod the question about the Kelantan government, for example. For years, the Kelantan government has ruled without too much scrutiny, because we had so much high respect for Tok Guru Nik Aziz, the leadership there and so on. But we also know there are serious problems with environmental corruption. Rasuah alam sekitar dari segi logging, illegal logging. Were proper procedures followed? Was it done with open tender? Is there corruption in the logging industry? Did the floods have anything to do with the logging? What would Amanah's stand be if it took over Kelantan? Because I remember Tuan Mat Sabu said they are ready to take over Kelantan. So what would be policies in that regard? Because these are real things. And my other question on corruption is patronage politics. We know that is what 1MDB is about. It's about feeding the crony system. So you need more money because you have more cronies to feed. So if you're the Prime Minister, it's very difficult because you really need to find money to feed all the cronies. So if Pakatan Harapan comes into power, what is the teachings of Maqasid Syariah that will ensure patronage politics does not become part of the system of governance? So that would be some of my questions. And then moving away from corruption, I want to also ask about the issue of equality before the law. There were several mentions of equality before the law. Women's rights, Muslim women and their rights among Muslims in general. Where are these in Maqasid Syariah? I did not see the concept of women's rights coming out so clearly. So whether that would be something we need to deal with in terms of coming up with policy positions and so on. Then I think perhaps the other thing I wanted to speak about is inclusiveness. Perhaps the last point is inclusiveness. Inclusiveness is easy to say, but it's very difficult to practice in terms of policies. For example, the halal trolley, non-halal trolley. What would be Pakatan Harapan's positioning on something like this? Because currently what's happening is that we focus on what divides us, not what brings us together. So how do we deal with this kind of thing? What you call segregation of supermarket lines in Kelantan, for example. It's culture shock for non-Muslims like me to be told to go and line up somewhere else when you're actually lining up in another place to pay for some food items and so on. So, but these are very practical things. So if we are talking about national dialogue, what are we talking about? Are we ready to discuss these things? Are we ready to actually talk about inclusiveness? and I think Malaysia is very special because we are really multi-ethnic. Tunisia, Egypt, the situation is quite different. But there's a lot that we can learn from there as well. And I found Zairil's sharing about Tunisia, and I myself know some Tunisian activist friends. I think the whole democratization there is something that Malaysians can really learn from. There's a lot to learn from the Tunisian experience, and how the new constitution was actually formed with a lot of dialogue. So my question to all the speakers is that readiness to dialogue. Are we really ready to dialogue? So I have to congratulate Chin Huat and his team for putting this together, because when I was first asked to be a discussant, I was telling him I'm not really very sure what to say within the context of something that I'm unfamiliar with. But I'm so glad to hear that the whole concept of Maqasid Syariah is actually inclusive. Now, the question to all the speakers is, how do we put it to practice? How do we start implementing it? How do we start looking at from political financing reforms right up to supermarket trolleys, becoming more cohesive in terms of developing a national agenda and national dialogue. So that's a challenge for today. And I think this is the start. If you may have already started earlier, this is a good start for us to take it outside Kuala Lumpur. Let's leave the city and go and discuss in smaller groups, in different states, to different people. So I'm hoping that Dato' Saifuddin, who has experience both in politics and in civil society, can actually do this miraculous job of tying all of us together, the politicians, the civil society leaders, to develop this kind of national dialogue that is needed. So it basically means each and every one of you in this room will have to take on roles and responsibilities to move out, dialogue, get discussions going, and we cannot stop. We cannot stop because we don't have much time. We should have a target by the next general elections, what we want to do with this Maqasid Syariah thing. So I think a lot of emphasis will be placed on Amanah to show that you are really the second generation of Islamic scholars and leaders that can lead the way. Thank you very much.
Well, to follow the way that Ustaz Wanji called me, then thank you, Ustazah Cynthia. Okay, next, Ustazah Chow.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here today. I think just now, Chin Huat have said at the beginning and the introductions, why our Civil Rights Committee in the Chinese Assembly Hall is interested in this issue. I think it's very obvious because we need to move forward from this racial, religions, politicking. I think it is important for us to diffuse the fear and the misunderstanding and the misconception among non-Muslim or even Muslim about Islam and Sharia. So that is the reason why we are here today. We organize this and we will continue to support this kind of effort. Now, I must say that I am very open. I have opened my eye a lot with the panelists' discussions and their presentation. It feels to me like Maqasid Syariah, the value is kind of like a universal value that everybody uphold. Freedom, equality, rights to life, and justice. So I'm just wondering, and Dr. Zul have said that this actually happens long time ago. So, but I'm just wondering, why is it only introduced today? Is it because of the political situation, or it just crossed my mind? But to be honest, there are so many things that cross my mind, and I have so many questions. I don't know how I can frame it out nicely. I also very mesmerized by what Chin Huat have started on the first slide. He said that this, what's his name? Abdul, yeah, sorry, yeah. He said that he saw Islam and not Muslim in the West, but he saw Muslim and not Islam when he came back. And also, Dr. Maslin have just also mentioned that he has a friend who is a Christian, but is it Christian? But Catholic, yeah, and she is totally Sharia compliance, you know. So it made me reflect, but of course it takes a long time for me to reflect that am I Maqasid Syariah compliance? Yeah. But of course, there are a lot of things that came up to my mind. Just an introductions. In a civil rights committee, we advocate and we campaign for the abolition of death penalty. Yeah, and I saw from the first speaker that Maqasid Syariah, Maqasid Syariah, preserve and promote life. So when we advocate for the abolition of death penalty over the past few years, we always face this problem. Islam allowed death penalty. So in Malaysia, there's no way you can abolish the death penalty if we do not have the support of Islam. So, and this is a very difficult argument for us to overcome. Even in the international conference, international experts keep coming up with these questions. In Malaysia, you have, Islam, you have Sharia law, and they say that, it is, you allow death penalty, so how do you overcome? I hope to hear whether there is a different perspective or different argument that we can advocate in terms of the abolition of death penalty. The second thing is that, I have an auntie in the 1970s or early 80s. She married a Muslim. So obviously she have converted into a Muslim, and then she changed her name. But unfortunately, the marriage didn't work out, so she divorced. And at that time, she divorced, and she just have to sign a statutory declaration to say that I have divorced, I am no longer a Muslim, I don't practice the faith. So there it goes. She is no longer a Muslim. So she has after she divorced, she has a choice to go back to whatever religions or even no religion at all. But today we have seen a situation where a mother who has divorced her husband, but he cannot come out from the religions, the faith. And we have seen a situation where a deprived person, a reprieved person, he cannot even seek justice from a secular court. And the secular court will close the door and ask him to go back to the Sharia court, and the Sharia court said, no, changing of religion is a death penalty. So how would Maqasid Syariah, deal with this kind of situation? Are we going to, I don't know, is it going to reverse or how? And also, from a woman's perspective, I also share Cynthia's concern about the position, the right and the positions of women in the Muslim world, because we have seen a lot inequality. We have seen, the position of women in the family unit. We have seen the position of Muslim women in the corporate unit, or even in a preservation of a marriage. They cannot divorce the husband, but the husband can divorce the woman. So if the woman is suffering from domestic violence, for example, how are they going to deal with it? How is this new Sharia help, Maqasid Syariah, help and bring up the position of the woman? Of course, just now we heard about free market, and this is some of the things that I'm very concerned about as well. Because even in America, when there's a free market, when there's a crisis, there's always regulation. In fact, I've just read a book. It says that there's no such thing as free market because the government definitely will have policy, control policy, whatever policy, to regulate. It's just that we don't see it or we just don't feel it. So what is the concept of free market? I know there's a lot to answer, but And I also hear that Maqasid Syariah is a set of value and not a set of law, and I got very excited about this. Because if this is not a set of law, then is the argument about whether Malaysia is an Islamic state still relevant? I mean, of course, it is very politicized, you know, Islamic state, non-secular state. But for argument's sake, you know, for the sake of discourse, you know, what do you think? If it's just a set of value, we don't even need to talk about whether Malaysia is an Islamic state or not. If what we preach for, we practice is Sharia compliance, so-called, then there's no meaning for us to argue. Just like I'm not a Muslim, but if I do everything good, then I'm compliant, you see.
Muslim with a small c.
Yeah.
That's more emphasis.
Yeah. And okay, so if value does not equals to law, so we see that in Malaysia, I know it's very sensitive, we have the state, we have the Sultan as the defender of Islamic affair. We have enactments, which is law. Yeah, we have body like Jakim, yeah, which prosecute you if they see you holding hand in the public, which really creates a lot of fear in the Chinese community. I mean, even though it doesn't apply to us, it became a topic for discussion. So, I mean, of course, I don't expect that you say that there is, very sensitive issue on the Sultan, but is there any discussion even among the practitioners on these particular issues? You know, how do we deal with it? Are we going to abolish it? Are we going to take, Jakim, are we going to take away the Sultan's, that head of Islamic affair? Yeah. Okay, that's very difficult. And the last one is local election. I think Syariah Committee is also campaigning for local elections. Local election is a pillar of democracy. Democracy doesn't mean only elections, but that is the most basic. But for now, we can see is local councillors are political appointee, that to that extent. So local elections promoting democracy, but we still have not seen it. We have not seen a position from the Pakatan Harapan. So we really hope to. Yeah, I know there's a lot. I know everybody is scribbling down. I'm so sorry. Yeah, we just hope to give this. I mean, of course, I don't really expect answer to everything, but I hope that this start with discussion, and it is really, I mean, to be honest, I in the first place also I said, why am I talking about this? I'm not so familiar, but I'm glad that I'm here because that made me think so much more, and it really, I think I would commit to even more discussions in the future if need to, because I feel that it is really, really meaningful, and it is, if it works, it really is the value system that we should uphold, and Malaysia should move forward, regardless of whether you are Muslim or non-Muslim. Thank you.
Well, give Charing a big hand. I think it's actually very refreshing, so even, how would I put it, revolutionary experience for some of us to actually think, to ask all these questions. In the past, when you think about Islam, for many people, that's actually a no-no. Islam means that don't think this, don't say this, because someone else would get feel oversensitive, and then they get angry and so on. But here, you see, the interesting things here is no one is fearing Islam. People are laughing, right? And you can laugh, and that's, Dr. Masli, is that Maqasid Syariah compliant? But the point here is exactly we are looking at Islam now as an open platform that you don't need to be a Muslim to actually have a say. We are all stakeholders because Islam, you like it or not, is in public sphere, right? So now, Dato' Shaifuddin, your time, and if Cynthia and Choyings are merely asking questions, I think there's some expectations on you because that you represent Pakatan Harapan, so both asking question and possibly providing answer. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for having Pakatan Harapan on board. Perhaps this is a small way to show that Pakatan works or is working. My first comment is actually on Cynthia because she was very explosive. The thing is this, all the politicians before us, when they spoke, they didn't touch about general election, but Cynthia touched about general election. So who is more Maqasid Syariah compliance? The politicians or the civil society? Now, looking at Maqasid Syariah, I think there are at least two ways people look at Maqasid Syariah, or use Maqasid Syariah, or apply Maqasid Syariah. Some people may want to apply Maqasid Syariah as a way to widen Islam, so that Islam really become what it is meant for, rahmatan lil alamin, mercy and blessings to all. But mind you, there are also people, perhaps in other halls, not Chinese Assembly Hall, other halls, are also discussing Maqasid Syariah, with a different set of panelists, politicians and academicians and civil society activists, not unlike Cynthia, but with a different objective altogether, to shallow, to stringent Islam. So please not be fooled by anyone who simply utter the phrase Maqasid Syariah. We have to be wary of the fact that there are people who may want to hijack the meaning of Maqasid Syariah. Now, let me then continue Chin Huat's style of sharing some numbers as to ponder whether these numbers represent the outcome of what is meant by Maqasid Syariah. If Maqasid Syariah, among others, means the higher objective of adil, justice and fairness, then let's look at the work of the World Justice Project on the Rule of Law Index 2015. Countries are ranked on the score of 1 for each areas, each categories, and the World Justice Project research 102 countries. And where is Malaysia in the KPIs? The categories are, well, this is like Emmy Award. Constraint on government powers, the score is 0.52, ranking is 58 out of 102 countries. Absence of corruption as in law, not as in real implementation, score is 0.63, ranking is 30 out of 102. I repeat, in the law, not in the implementation. Openness of government, score is 0.43, ranking is 88. Fundamental rights, ranking is 0.48, the score is 0.48, ranking is 78. Civil justice, this is probably, the score is 0.58, the ranking is 37, criminal justice ranking is 0.56, the score is 30. The top countries are Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Netherlands. Overall, Malaysia is ranked number 39 out of 102 countries. So, who is more Sharia or Maqasid Syariah compliance? The other number is based on the World Well-being Index of 2015. World Well-being Report of 2015. Countries are measured based on their GDP, social support system, healthy lifestyle, freedom of choice, generosity, volunteerism, level of corruption, and a few other KPIs. The top 10 countries are Switzerland, Iceland, Denmark, Norway, Canada, Finland, Netherlands, Sweden, New Zealand, Australia, and Malaysia is ranked 61. So who is more Sharia compliance in this context? My second point is this. Cynthia mentioned, sister mentioned also inclusiveness. How inclusive are we in Malaysia in the way we treat the other? In particular, how do Muslims treat the other? More often than not, we will fall back on the classic classification of Muslim and Kafir. And Kafir are divided into two, Kafir Harbi, disbelievers, non-believers who are at war with Muslim, and then Kafir Zimmi, non-believers who are in contract or at peace, depending on which literature you are referring to, with Muslim. But if we need to reconcile, I think we need to reconcile that with another understanding, which is also promoted by, among others, Qaradawi, brotherhood in citizenship. Because unless you see the other, unless I see Chin Huat and all my non-Muslim friends in Malaysia as fellow citizens, I will have a problem. For so long as I look at Chin Huat as Kafir Zimmi, I will have a problem. I have to see Chin Huat as a fellow citizen, full stop. Otherwise, I will find it very difficult to interpret Article 3 and Article 153. Because I always have that, lain sikit lah. Article 3, yeah lah, but lain sikit lah. 153, yes, but lain sikit lah. Yeah. But if I understand non-Muslim in Malaysia as fellow brothers and sisters of equality before law, Article 8 of the Constitution, I have no problem. And I don't think that is non-Sharia compliance. Yeah, but we have to be bold enough to say that. The problem is sometimes, we play hide and seek lah. No, we didn't do that in Paris. We were there only to fight LGBT. Okay. And this would then bring us to other issues like politics of race and politicization of religion. The whole worldview of understanding the other will have a lot of walls or artificial walls being built to the extent that you feel it is so embedded and so ingrained that you thought it's okay to be like that. I mean, it's okay to look at Chin Huat lain sikit lah. Even though Chin Huat shouldn't be seen as lain sikit lah. Yeah. My next point is really on the issue that was so controversial in as far as the former Pakatan was concerned. Hudud. I'm not attempting to answer it, but I just want to ask this question. The one that I asked in Penang. Is common law 100% un-Islamic? Are all the enactments of Sharia law in this country 100% Islamic? Are not the two laws have undergone thousands of years of history of borrowing from each other, sometimes immersion or being immersionized through tradition and practice of so many of the fuqaha of the Muslim jurists in the past. Yeah. Next is how do we go forward? And I want to follow up on what Ustaz Wanji said about debate. In fact, I think within the Islamic context, there is a very profound message and teaching about on the need of debate and dialogue with all others, yeah, Muslim and non-Muslim alike. An-Nahli 125 is like the dustur of politics to me. It's like the rukun, it's like the pillar of politics. It talks about the three elements. One is wisdom, the other one is good teaching and good example, and the other one is dialogue. Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmah wal mau'izatil hasanah wajadilhum billati hiya ahsan. Call them on the path of God with wisdom, with good teachings, including examples, and debate, dialogue with them in the best of ways. Yeah. See, the problem is my former party don't believe in debate lah. That's one of the reasons why I jump ship lah. You see. Debate is not our culture. Masalah sikit. My last point is referring to, again, my neighbor's explosive questions to me on Pakatan Harapan. I can only say that we are in the midst of preparing our common policy, so I can play hide and seek for now. No, I think Maqasid Syariah will be one of the more important approach that we will be using within the context of Pakatan Harapan's common policies. It was already there in the Pakatan Rakyat's Muafakat Rakyat. Maqasid Syariah was already there. In fact, I think the breakup was because some people don't really want to use Maqasid Syariah, if I can say that in plain term. But I think within Pakatan Harapan, I am very confident that Maqasid Syariah will well, what's the best way to say it? Yeah, we will be applying Maqasid Syariah to the full, if I can put it that way. So be rest assured, we will be looking at the application of Maqasid Syariah in the way we make policies, in the future direction of Pakatan Harapan. On political funding, I can't really answer that to the extent that it is really an official answer, but I think from the understanding that I get from the three parties within Pakatan thus far is that political funding regulation cannot operate in a vacuum. For instance, you can't have political funding regulation without making sure that there will be fair trial, fair and justice is served. I give an example, because we have incidences in the past where a donor contributed some amount of money to one of the opposition political parties and then get into some kind of trouble. Both were quite transparent about it. The donor was very transparent about it. The political party who received the donation was very transparent about it. Of course, it was not 2.6 billion. But doesn't mean if it is 2.6 billion to this party will not be transparent about it. Yeah? But the donor get into some kind of trouble. So you need to ensure that the whole framework is in order before you can actually implement it. Should we not come up with a political funding law? We should. We should. But it should not operate in a vacuum. It must operate in a judicial system that is really fair and proper, and justice. We are ensured that justice will prevail. So those are my 2 cents worth of comments and some questions to our panelists. Thank you.
Now, it's Q&A, but I would like to collect the questions. I'm sorry that I can't give you a chance to express your opinion. You can catch our panelists and discussant after this because of in the interest of time. But I want to invite questions. After that, we'll get our panelists back here to answer in one round. So who would be interested to ask questions? So please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Anyone else? 6? 6, raise your hand again. Okay, could you come to the front? The reason is that this is actually live. But the camera is standing still, so it can't actually move around. So would you mind come to the front? We have 2 mics here, so then you can ask questions one after another. Come to the front. Over here, you have to be here. Otherwise, you can't get into the camera. You can use mine. No, yeah, but you have to be here. Dr. Moose? Yeah, so, and Madam? And who else? There's one more person. All right, sorry. Okay, good.
Okay,
Introduce yourself.
I'm Kok Siong from CRC KL Selangor Chinese Assembly Hall. This question is addressed to Dr. Zul, Party Amanah. I believe, I think most of the people may have this in their mind, but either they have asked that or without asking it. Yeah. Okay, for the coming general elections, definitely there will be we'll foresee a lot of triangles, triples fight between UMNO, PAS, and Amanah. So, what make Amanah's difference than the PAS? And well, Amanah uphold or advocate what we mean by Maqasid Syariah, and how, what do you think is the acceptance levels for the Muslim and the non-Muslim in this country? Okay, that's all.
One side, then we'll show you. Okay. Could you come in a bit? Because it's live.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, my name is Robert Fu. I actually basically help in an NGO called Syariah Pakistan Malaysia. I've actually attended quite a number of these talks and forums about Maqasid Syariah and what it means and things like that. But from what I hear in many of these forums, the whole gist of this is actually values, you know, about justice, about fairness, equality, free enterprise, or whatever. It's basically about values. My concern in many of these forums is that the way we are labeling, you know, these values is using it as Maqasid Syariah. You're giving it a label that, I'm sorry to say, sounds very Islamic. Okay? Now, if I were to ask many of you here who are Muslims, you probably have very different interpretation of what is Islamic and what is not in its totality. The problem I have here is because when we couch the whole discussion on the concept of Maqasid Syariah or any labeling or terms, okay, that are Islamic, then we have I feel that can be a problem. Because I think if you're going to follow what Rashid Ghanouchi did, you know, is to step back and don't make it an Islamic discussion, but make it a discussion on values and see where they are going. Perhaps, whether it's Pakatan Harapan or Amanah or whoever, would like to actually think about this and do not have that discussion from a tainting in the sense of Sharia. I'm not belittling it, okay? I'm just saying that a tainting. Because when you do that, from the concept of the Muslims, sorry, non-Muslim, and even many Muslim friends I have, they are very concerned. So my point here is that isn't it better that we have a narrative on values? Perhaps what the Tunisian experiment is, okay? Go on values, on justice. I mean, is justice very different if you say it is guideline or in some sort of Sharia terms? It's the same, right? I mean, I'm a Christian, but I'm sure Muslims will know, so will also probably agree that if you ever go to heaven, you know, will your God say, did you follow Maqasid Syariah or do you follow values? Isn't it? So I think the problem here I have is that when we couch a lot of things in Islamic, so-called Islamic, I'm not belittling it, okay? It's so-called Islamic terms, which gives very different feeling, very different interpretations by many people. I understand the politics of Malaysia, the realities and all that. But I think if we are daring enough, if we are able, okay, to be the kind of people who actually go on values rather than just labeling. Otherwise, you're going to have halal trolleys, non-halal trolleys, halal lines, non-halal lines. This is all labeling. I was in a bank before. Okay, before the Islamic banking became called Islamic banking, it was basically called interest-free banking. There's nothing Islamic about it. It's just interest-free banking. Suddenly, after 6 months, it became Islamic banking. And once you put the word Islamic there, it creates a problem. So my issue is, can we have the discussion based on values rather than labeling it in Islamic terms? Thank you.
Dr. Masli, privileging the right.
Thank you.
Come in a bit, Dr. Mus. Face the camera.
Okay. Hi, I'm Mustafa from Penang Institute. My question is addressed to the political actors, primarily. Now, as we all know, the old approach to Islam as opposed to Maqasid Syariah is very much entrenched in our society. How do you plan to dismantle this old creature, in our midst, in terms of programs, in terms of presenting it to the ordinary folks? Yeah, thank you.
How to present it? Okay. Now, sorry, brother.
Hello.
Introduction, please.
I'm Shukri. My question is simple. When you speak about Maqasid Syariah, it has to do with the Hudud law. Hudud law has no place in the 21st century. Cutting people's hand is wrong. Stoning people to death is wrong. It gives a bad image to the religion of Islam, to the economy, to the state, to the Muslim, in terms of maslahah musalah. According to Sheikh bin Baya, guarding the image of religion is part of Maqasid Syariah. Hudud law is against human ethics and the human intellect. Can we just haramkan Hudud law, or we can ban Hudud law? Is it still relevant, or I sudah jadi murtad tanya soalan ni? Thank you.
Assalamualaikum. Saya Rozaini. Mengaplikasikan Maqasid Syariah ini juga mengaplikasikan ketentuan or ascertaining priorities. Banyak yang telah kita bincangkan. First thing should come first. Siapa yang akan melaksanakan atau mengaplikasikan Maqasid Syariah ini untuk kebaikan rakyat? Tentunya kepimpinan. So, tidak disebut dan didiskus tadi tentang kepimpinan yang menjadi tonggak apa-apa pun yang berlandaskan Maqasid Syariah. Khususnya kepada parti-parti politik, boleh juga yang lain, untuk menjawab apakah cara mereka untuk memilih calon-calon pilihan raya mereka. Dan baru-baru ini kita tahu tentang kemenangan Perdana Menteri Kanada. Adakah melantik 15 daripada 30 kabinetnya Maqasidi? Terima kasih.
Assalamualaikum, saya Afiq daripada Lingkaran Islam Tradisional. Soalan saya untuk Dr. Zul. Hari ini kita sebut pasal maqasid, lepas tu ada sebut tentang masalihul mursalah. Salah satu benda yang penting dalam syariah ni, kata Ibn Qayyim dalam I'lamul Muwaqqi'in, dia kata syariah ni tujuan dia adalah untuk limasalihil ibad. Jadi maslahah adalah salah satu ingredient yang penting apabila kita discuss tentang maqasid. Dan saya melihat scenes politik ke mutaakhir ini lebih kebanyakannya menggunakan maqasid ini sebagai hilah untuk menjustifikasikan tindakan-tindakan politik. Kerana mungkin dilihat agak kurang konservatif atau dilihat agak kurang fiqhnya tindakan politik itu, jadi nak justify dia gunakan maqasid. Adakah ada dua soalan, adakah amanah nombor satu, adakah amanah khusus untuk amanah sebab dia Muslim Demokrat, dia PKR lain, dia parti tak ada ideologi, dia masuk semua. Adakah amanah bersedia seperti kata at-Tusi, nashun nusus bil maslahah yajuz. Apabila maslahah bertembung dengan nas ataupun teks, adakah amanah bersedia untuk ketepikan teks dan ambil maslahah? Nombor 1. Soalan nombor 2, kita sebut tentang, ada Cynthia dan juga ni sebut tentang gender tentang perempuan dan sebagainya. Soalan ni agak berani. Adakah amanah berdasarkan kerangka maqasid syariah bersedia untuk menerima homoseksual ni satu benda, membenarkan civil union di dalam homoseksual dalam persoalan LGBT? Kalau kita tak sebut LGBT secara umum, kita ambil apa yang ada dalam syarah sahih Muslim oleh Imam Nawawi tentang mukhannas bitakalluf dan yang secara natural ataupun secara secara construct itu. Ya, terima kasih.
Thank you. Okay, silakan. Silakan. That's fine. This is so exciting, right? So, saya akan.
So my name is Alif. I'm from Ampang. I just want to ask to YB Zairil from the AP because boleh saya Melayu lah. Okay. Macam ni tau. Bila kita berkaitan hudud, dia menjadi satu fobia kepada rakan-rakan kita daripada DAP. Jadi kita sebab hudud ni dia bukan dia bergantung pada Melayu, tapi dia lebih pada Muslim. Jadi apakah sebenarnya stand DAP berkaitan hudud ni sebenarnya? Sebab kadang-kadang perkara hudud ni dia boleh menjadi, orang kata, peluru pada musuh kita UMNO untuk merobohkan pakatan sendiri. Sebab kalau bila sebut hudud, dia akan menyebabkan semangat kemelajuan tu jadi lain macam. Macam itulah. Sebab kalau kita sebut hudud, dia berkaitan dengan Melayu Islam. Jadi macam mana stand DAP itu sebenarnya? Sebab selalunya bila benda ni dikaitkan hudud, dia akan mengganggu dari segi keharmonian pakatan tu kadang-kadang lah. Just nak tahu itu saja. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih saudara. Okey, kita sudah ada banyak soalan. Sila berikan tepukan gemuruh kepada discussion kita dan kita jemput kembali panelis kita. Sekarang masa untuk panelis kita menjawab soalan yang begitu mencabar. Okey, biar saya izinkan saya untuk kumpulkan soalan antara yang lain. Pertama tentang hukuman hudud. Ini kepada amanah, juga kepada DAP, dan berkaitan dengan itu adalah hukuman mati. So that's one topic. Apakah pandangan itu? Yang kemudiannya adalah tentang inclusiveness, tentang religious freedom, iaitu sama ada boleh tukar agama, boleh dijadikan sama rata. Kalau dalam perkataan ustaz saya, ukhuwah wataniyah, betul? Ukhuwah wataniyah. Maksudnya persaudaraan dalam negara bangsa. Okey? Jadi itu satu soalan yang tadi antara lain Datuk Syaifuddin yang kemukakan. Kemudian kita ada soalan tentang pentadbiran dan undang-undang Islam daripada Jakim sampailah Sultan sebagai ketua Islam sampailah yang lain. Okay. Kemudian kita ada soalan berkaitan dengan kedudukan lelaki dan perempuan, kesamarataan, dan yang lebih hebat daripada itu LGBT. Kita ada juga soalan tentang pilihan raya tempatan. Dr. Zul, itu soalan untuk you. Yeah, because the other two parties. Okay, PKR juga. PKR stand kena clear sikit. Di Selangor tak ada lagi. Okay, so dan soalan yang penting daripada Cynthia pasal rasuah, patronage sampailah Kelantan. Itu juga soalan untuk Dr. Zul. Dr. Zul yang dapat paling banyak soalan. Ini amanah kepada parti amanah. Dan kita juga ada soalan tentang TPPA. Yes, TPPA dan juga free market. Ini untuk Dr. Masli. Itu tentang free market, ini isu ekonomi, itu untuk Dr. Masli. Kita ada soalan, saya rasa ada yang akhirnya tadi yang saudara Robert tanya, sama ada kita boleh perjuangkan nilai-nilai ini tanpa satu label Islam, tanpa satu label Maqasid Syariah, dan kita selesa dengan itu tanpakan labelnya. Ataupun kita perlu itu, dan itu kait kembali kepada macam mana soalan yang daripada Kok Siong, macam mana amanah akan bezakan diri daripada PAS. Ada orang kata amanah ini parti kecewa. Tapi apa yang dikecewa? Kecewa kerana kalah dalam pemilihan parti, ataupun kecewa dengan tuju haluannya. Jadi, dan soalan yang termasuk juga macam mana kita pilih calon politik, itu saya rasa terbuka kepada semua. Ada apa yang saya tertinggal? Tak ada. Kalau begitu kita boleh minta panelis. Siapa nak dulu? Setiap orang ada 10 minit. Dr. Zul dulu. Dr. Zul paling banyak soalan.
Di situ persoalan mana letak keadilan. Keadilan bukannya semua kena pakai double XL ke atau L, tapi memberikan pada had dan proportion yang diperlukan. It must be on a needs basis rather than.
Selagi kita ada perbincangan, kita boleh buat.
Don't worry. I'll just saja je mengusik you. Pulling a leg. Okay. Saya cuba. Terima kasih kepada kawan-kawan yang bertanya soalan-soalan yang sangat baik. Ya, kita pun sudah merasakan bahawa ini merupakan diskusi yang hidup dengan apa yang dikatakan sebagai wacana, dialog, dan ini yang kita mahukan di negara kita ini, kerana ia sekaligus membayangkan kematangan dan keupayaan kita berbeza pandangan tetapi masih mampu mengurus. This is really about how akhirnya nanti kita akan dapat dalam bahasa Al-Quran dia kata politik li ta'arafu, the politic of acknowledging, enhancing respect for one another. You accept others as others and do not relativize others with you. Itu bahasa susah sikit nak faham. Itu maksudnya ability untuk kita mengiktiraf perbezaan dan mengurus perbezaan itu. That is where democracy is all about. It's about managing dissent within a political construct. Ini yang disebutkan dalam Al-Quran, walaula daf'ullahi nas ba'dhum bi ba'd la fasadatil ard. Had not God, had not Allah willed, had not Allah allow for the check and balance, for one group by another, la fasadatil ard, the entire earth will be under tumult and dissension. Itu prinsipal demokrasi ataupun the cardinal principle of check and balance in the Quran. There are two verses of this. So saya sangat let's give Brother Wong Ching Wat a big applause for all this. This is the way forward. It has become a national agenda. It's a question mark here, but inilah dia satu yang kita katakan sebagai a national conversation that kita sudah mula dengan rasa penuh tanggungjawab. You may have differences, very sharp differences, tapi kita mampu untuk berwacana dengan baik. Baik, soalan pertama, soalan Cynthia. Soalan Kelantan itu sangat sensitif. Kena tanya orang Kelantan, tetapi jawapan saya mudah. Kerana kita sedang memerhatikan apa yang dibentangkan dan dibawa ke tengah in the public space by Datuk Husam Musa, yang sekaligus memberikan kita faham bahawa permasalahan di Kelantan itu sudah agak lama, dan walaupun ada usaha-usaha beliau menyelesaikan masalah dan mengemukakan masalah dalam ruang yang ada di negeri Kelantan itu sendiri, tetapi nampaknya ia memerlukan perkara itu dibawa ke satu ruang umum dan awam yang akan meletakkan kebertanggungjawaban negeri yang dipimpin oleh Parti Islam Malaysia PAS itu atas persoalan dan tuntutan kebertanggungjawaban, ketelusan, dan all the more on the issues of tendering dan bagaimana orang yang sama juga yang mendapat segala apa yang dikatakan sebagai peruntukan pembalakan dan sebagainya itu. Saya tidak mau pergi kepada situ, cuma yang saya membuat satu komentar yang keluar semalam ke hari ini apabila saudara Mak Sabu mengatakan beliau bersedia, amanah bersedia untuk mengambil alih Kelantan, dan langsung PAS mengatakan tengok amanah mau merampas Kelantan. Saya membuat penjelasannya begini, apa yang dimaksudkan oleh Presiden saya adalah andainya PAS gagal mempertahankan Kelantan, justru kerana persepsi dan tanggapan rakyat di Kelantan sudah tidak boleh menerima akan apa jua kekurangan dan kelemahan dan kebincangan takbir urusnya di Kelantan itu, maka akan jatuh kerajaan itu ke tangan UMNO. Kami amanah bersedia untuk mempertahankan Kelantan, bagi mempertahankan legasi Tok Guru Nik Aziz, dan kami akan bersedia untuk mempertahankan Kelantan daripada jatuh ke tangan UMNO, walaupun kami terpaksa ambil alih kerajaan Kelantan itu daripada PAS. Itu maksudnya, ya. And we are not here to. Andainya kita tidak rasakan perlu, maka kita tidak will back up. We have got no business of trying to take over the state government of Kelantan. Baik, saya langsung.
Measure that you're going to implement on Hudud.
Yeah, of course. This is certainly very important because kita tahu bahawa antara maqasid yang penting ya dalam hal hifzul mal. Hifzul mal ini selalunya orang bercakap tentang apa yang dikatakan sebagai memelihara harta, tetapi in the context I would like to say this, there are penulisan-penulisan ulama yang merupakan generasi sama ada ulama-ulama yang dikatakan dulunya maqasid sudah hadir, sudah ada, tetapi maqasid yang disebutkan istilahnya maqasid secara taklidi, the original atau the earlier interpretation of maqasid. Namun kalau kita membaca tentang penulisan-penulisan maqasid daripada contemporary Islamic thinker, kita akan dapati bahawa setiap yang kita katakan imperatif tadi, contohlah kita ambil tentang hifzul akal ataupun memelihara to preserve the intellect. Sekarang ini dalam konteks kita, political Islam tidak hanya bercakap tentang preservation, memelihara, tetapi enhancement. Dalam konteks itu, kita tak bercakap hanya dengan persoalan segala yang haram itu memabukkan dan segala yang memabukkan itu haram. Likul khamrun likul khamrun maskurun janazas likul maskurun haramun gitu kan. Itu kawaid ataupun kaedah the legal maximnya. Tapi dalam konteks sebuah parti politik yang bertindak dalam ruang lingkup demokrasi abad 21 ini, hifzul akal itu ataupun the preservation of intellect, preservation of intellect dalam konteks ini adalah membangunkan sebuah tamadun education yang sangat bersesuaian dengan matlamat, melahirkan graduan yang intellectually superior, morally vibrant, creatively enterprising, contohnya begitu. Ya, ini adalah bagi melahirkan satu umat, satu bangsa, satu negara bangsa punya anak didiknya yang keluar daripada industri-industri kita yang very enterprising, morally vibrant dan intellectually superior. Apakah gerakan Islam? Apakah political Islam? Apakah amanah mampu melahirkan mampu menampilkan policies, policy advocacy, policy prescription yang akan dapat memberikan natijah dan outcome seperti itu? That is a challenge on amanah based on maqasid. Ya, baik. Saya ni kalau nak jawab semua ni,
you pilih lah. Yang tak jawab tu mungkin yang.
Yeah.
Tapi yang tuju pada amanah you tak boleh lari.
Alright. Yang mana yang ditujukan kepada amanah tadi ya? Pertama yang saya ingat adalah Hudud. Hudud was tangential. The saudara Dr. Mus ya, Dr. Mus apa dia tanya tadi? Dr. Mus was asking about iya. Saya sebenarnya tidak mau membuat kontras dengan parti lama saya kerana ada unsur-unsur holier than thou, kami adalah yang baik. I don't like that at all. Itu bukan cara bagaimana saya berhujah. Namun saya memperkenalkan maqasid dan membawa metodologi ataupun pendekatan maqasid ini yang sudah pun jelas. Dalam huraian saya, not a tinge, tidak ada singgungan pun tentang pelaksanaan qanun jinai. Karena dalam konteks apa yang disebutkan oleh saudari Puan Rozaini tadi kan, bersekali dengan pemahaman maqasid juga adalah pemahaman tentang prioritization. Saya tidak suka masuk tajuk itu kerana itu fiqh, satu lagi fiqh aulawiyat, the concept of prioritization. How do you prioritize apa yang dulu, apa yang kemudian, takdim ahammu minal muhim sebagainya. Itu satu lagi perbincangannya agak berbeza. Cumanya yang kalau saya cuba boleh we do not need to dismantle, but we should come strong to replace that until it become the mainstream and just become marginalized. Bermaksud, andainya kita punya keupayaan, kemenangan dan mandat oleh rakyat, maka ketika kita menghurai dan mencerakinkan policy, when we come to frame policies or policies prescription and policies advocacy, tentunya cara dan pendekatan kami itu adalah bukan saja what is known as the literalist approach. Jadi, perbezaan yang saya tidak sebut, semua mungkin tidak sebut tadi adalah tentang why Maqasidic approach is berbeza dengan those literalist approach of the earlier mazahib. Yeah, they very much depend on al-qiyas, while Maqasid talks about the qawaidul ahkam, the legal maxim, the higher intent, the objective, ya, the values, the higher intent. Jadi perbezaan itu sangat jelas. Ya, sebab itu yang the first generation itu dia kembali, they come to be reducing permasalahan masyarakat itu dengan masalah ni kita selesai dengan hudud. Kalau hudud ada, you get the problem of all this. Tentang semua masalah is reduced to penal code Islam. That is what is known as, minta maaf kalau saya guna istilah ini, legal reductionism. Ya, satu approach yang reduces everything to just simply, you have a simplistic solution of, kalau kita laksanakan hudud, semua selesai. You do not quite understand causative factor, what are the underlying factor, apakah yang menjadikan sebab musababnya. Kerana Islam itu sangat bijak dalam penyelesaian. And it will not prescribe until and unless it has come to diagnose dan meletakkan, baik. The most important thing dalam perkara ini yang saya nampak tadi, ada persoalan tentang Datuk Saifuddin membangkitkan apakah common law itu. Sudah banyak yang diislamkan. In fact, betul ya, you should know that very well, just posing it to us. Ta'zir itu sebagian besarnya adalah common law. Ya, we know that very well because apa yang tidak dapat tertakluk kepada the stringent requirement of hudud, hukum had itu, dia dan juga dia jatuh kepada takziran. Takzir essentially judgment handed down by the judge, which is takzir, which is apa yang dikatakan sebagai hukum takzir. Yeah, which is very similar. Baik, apa lagi? LGBT. That wasn't soalan for me. Yeah. Akif tanya soalan saya. Afiq, exactly, you have said it very well. Maqasid syariah itu adalah apanya lima salihil ibad. It is meant, segala syariah itu pada akhirnya adalah untuk manusia mengurus takbir hidupnya, ia mengatur susunan hidupnya, sama ada fardian wa jama'ian, hidup pribadinya maupun kolektifnya sebagai sebuah masyarakat dan negara, pada akhirnya untuk mengangkat kemaslahatan, kepentingan manusia itu sebagai manusia. Lalu apa yang dikatakan tadi, jadi maqasid ini sangat cantik kerana ia dalam bahasa mudahnya, of promoting the benefits for man and preventing harms against him. And itu 5 lah, sekarang 7, 9, 13. Ya. Jadi perkara-perkara itulah yang dipelihara. Sama ada darul mafasid, menolak kemudaratan ke atas perkara-perkara tersebut, akalnya, agamanya, ya, harta bendanya, ya, lineage-nya, nasal ataupun progeninya, ya, dalam hal-hal perkara yang boleh membawa kepada kerosakan dan cemarnya the purity of lineage, kerana zina, kerana segalanya. Jadi oleh kerana itu sangat bertepatan pendekatan maqasid ini kerana dia memang bercakap tentang finally untuk mengizinkan manusia itu mengecapi al-falah, ar-rahmah, ya, dan apa jua yang menjadi the timeless principle, the universal principles yang dikongsi oleh semua bangsa, semua kaum ataupun semua jenis manusia, ya, by all communities and all adherents of faith and conviction. Jadi dengan kata lain, soalan tadi saya tak nampak ya, soalan Afiq tadi on this. That was one when you were asking about apabila berlaku ta'arud ataupun tanakut, pertembungan antara nas dan maslah. Saya ingin komen sikit sebab soalan itu agak pada saya lah agak pelik. Sebab saya membaca daripada kitab-kitab yang saya baca, maka di sana maslahat, ya, maslahat itu lazimnya tidak bertembung dengan nas. Bahkan maslahat itu berbangkit daripada nas. Kecuali yang kita lihat seperti mana Sayyidina Umar berlaku, ya. Sayyidina Umar membawa mazhab maqasid sebab dia dilihat sebagai bertentangan dengan nas. Tindakannya tentang ghanaim, tentang the war booty ataupun the division of spoils of war, ya, dan juga atas apa lagi, ya Ustaz, tolong cepat, apa lagi yang Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, Ustaz, tolong saya, apa lagi ijtihad Umar yang bertentang, ya, jadi dengan kata lain, walaupun secara akademiknya, ya, secara akademiknya adalah mungkin saja berlaku pertentangan antara maslahah dengan nas, tetapi secara praktiknya sebenarnya itu maslahah yang mu'tabarah, bukan maslahah yang mulghah, yang ditolak, adalah maslahah yang terbit daripada nas. Itu sangat jelas, dan ada orang kata apa ni bercakap tentang masalah kena tengok nas. Orang itu kurang faham sebenarnya, bukan Afiq lah, certainly. Orang itu kurang faham bahawa dalam nas itu terbitnya akan masalah di situ. Dan tidak sangat itu yang ada nas, yang tidak ada nas pun begitu, sebab dia datang dalam bentuk al-istihsan. Ya, dari sumber-sumber seperti itu yang mesti memerlukan ijtihad. I know most of you already gone and lost in this jungle of Arabic words that we are using. Tetapi saya kembali untuk menekankan betapa there should not be any contradiction between the text and the values. In fact, the values coming from the text. Cumanya di mana ada yang ambil literalist, this is where Maqasid differs with the earlier mazhab ini, kerana the earlier mazhab, ya, especially tak maaf lah, Syafi'i dan Malikis, only the Malikis are meletakkan ijtihad mereka itu, imah mazhab Maliki ini on maslah, on understanding the values and the maqasid. So there certainly will be kind of a contradiction, ya, ada perbezaan itu. Cuma saya tidak mau lebih daripada itu. Can I just move on? Apa lagi?
The last question,
yeah.
just ask you on local election. Then we can move on with others.
So mundane, so mundane. Yeah. Okay, I know. I said mundane meaning it's very important for me to mundane in the sense that you may look at it as mundane, but when it comes to understanding apa yang dikatakan, this is exactly, there is no nas to this. There is no, this is what I mean by nas. There is no textual thing in the Quran. There is no verses that say whether you can have to have that there. So this is why understanding Maqasid Syariah is very important.
So your position, based on your understanding of Maqasid Syariah,
okay,
should it be allowed?
No, the thing is this. Talking about hudud, there was a question on hudud, so I'm going to answer. Ya. Dalam maqasid, yang mau dicapai pada akhirnya adalah keadilan. Apakah perkara di situ, in promoting the benefits and in avoiding harm kepada manusia itu ia mesti dilaksanakan dengan pendekatan yang tidak membawa kezaliman. Understand? So in all, so the procedure and the way that we carry it out is so important as much as, you know, trying to achieve the ends. Right. The local government election.
Would Abana support local elections?
This is the point. If it is, and I think we have already, when we were in PAS lagi pun kita sudah jelas bahawa kita akan menyokong local election. Ya, bukan kerana we are trying to appease you, get your vote. You got to understand that. That's not where we are coming from. We are coming from the position of what is best. Dari sudut keberkesanan, dari sudut representation, dari sudut keadilan of representation, dari sudut memberikannya apa yang terbaik, dari sudut the governance-nya. That's where we are coming from. That is maqasid. Rather than thinking whether the Malays will be losing out or what, you know. Tidak begitu kita berfikir. Berfikir begitu adalah berfikir maqasid adalah memikirkan what is the best benefit that we could deliver, how do we in delivering that benefit reduce the harm. Ya, saya ulangi. Dalam maqasid is always thinking about how best to deliver a benefit while taking care of how do you reduce the harm and doing it the most just atau in a way that provide justice. Saya ingat sudah melampaui masa saya. Terima kasih. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Zhu. Who want to go next? Dr. Masli? No.
DAP. Dulu. Okay, tak. Banyak yang saya senarai ni lebih kurang 10 Cuma saya jawab sekadar yang mampu. Dan yang tak ada jawab tu orang lain jawab sebab ada lagi 2 baki sebab dalam Islam ni yang hanya wajib jawab adalah soalan mungkar dan nakir sahaja. Yang lain tak jawab tak apa. Okey, type. Dia pasal isu keadilan Dia bukan parti keadilan. Isu adil, al-adl Dia adil ni memanglah kita nak buat keadilan, tapi adil tu maknanya apa? Itu pun ada problem besar dalam tradisi Islam. Yang kata wad'u syai'in fi mahallih, meletakkan satu pada tempat tu, itu Sayyidina Ali yang menulis sekali sebut dalam kitab Nahjul Balaghah. Jadi tapi sebenarnya bukan semua ulama-ulama Islam tu setuju, ada yang tak setuju. Contoh Yusuf Al-Qaradawi, dia mendefinisikan al-adlu adalah i'ta' kulli haqqin haqqah, berikan kepada orang yang ada hak itu haknya. Kalau ada hak kita kena bagi hak itu pun satu keadilan. Ada pula satu lagi nama sekolah Islam, nama dia Dr. Amdrab bin Nabi. Dia buat satu tesis PhD. Tesis dia tajuk Nazariyatul Muwazanat, bandingan di antara fiqh imbang antara baik dan buruk. Dia menyatakan yang dikatakan adil itu adalah perimbangan itu sendiri. Mungkin adalah satu yang adil apabila kita berdiri di tengah jalan di kampung kita pada pukul 3 pagi. Tapi dia tidak adil pada pukul 6 petang. Sebab pada pukul 6 petang mungkin jam teruk. Pukul 3 pagi tak ada siapa nak lalu, contohlah kan. Jadi itu satu konsep keadilan yang dibincang. Jadi kalau kita kata, ya nak buat keadilan, tapi adil itu apa? Itu pun tak jelas lagi sebenarnya. Itu pun masih lagi debate di kalangan ulama-ulama Islam. Makanya tak heranlah orang tradisi barat pun jadi John Locke, John Rawls, dia kupas benda macam ni kan. Itu satu. Yang kedua, berkenaan dengan label dan praktikal, Islam ni dia ada satu, dalam tradisi ulama-ulama Islam, dia ada satu kaedah yang diamalkan, iaitu al-hukmu yaduru 'alal musamma la 'alal ismi. Hukum itu berlegar kepada kandungan, bukan kepada nama. Nama ni tak ada apa apa ada pada nama. Tak penting nama tu, yang penting tu kandungan. Sebab baca Quran tak semestinya memang mendatangkan kemaslahatan. Pada zaman dulu ada orang yang baca Quran tapi melakukan kerosakan, namanya khawarij. Itu berlaku zaman dulu Sayyidina Ali karamallahu wajhah pada masa tu dia terus buat ucapan kalimatuhu al-haqqa wa rada biha batilun. Perkataan itu betul tapi yang dimaksudkan itulah kebatilan. Jadi isu ni bukan nama tak penting, maqasid ke maqasud ke maqasid, bohlah nama apa pun. Yang penting tu apakah rakyat dapat kebaikan ataupun tidak. Itu yang point kita nak bawa. Tapi kenapa nak buat label? Sebab mungkin Islam tu sendiri dia nak apa, bila ulama Islam nak cerita dia kena ada label dia sendiri supaya benda tu datang daripada Islam. Wa 'allama Adamal asma'a kullaha. Allah Taala ajar berbagai-bagai nama kepada Adam kan. Jadi nama tu untuk memudahkan dalam kita berinteraksi bila kita nak bincang apa sudut pandang Islam tentang isu yang kita nak bawa tu. Itu aja Okey, jadi nama golah maksud ke mak emboh lah kan, mak engkau ke nak bubuh kan. Bubuhlah nama apa pun. Yang penting apakah boleh memberi kebaikan kepada rakyat ataupun tidak. Okey, dia maqasid ni dia bukan semata-mata nilai, tetapi dia ada beberapa debate lain tentang maqasid. Kalau slide saya tadi, kalau di awal-awal yang saya tak tunjuk tu, sebenarnya dia ada sebut beberapa poin penting berkenaan maqasid. Antaranya nilai, antaranya adalah kemaslahatan, kebaikan. Kebaikan tu pula apakah sementara ataupun berpanjangan. Lepas tu dia ada satu lagi debate tentang al-ijtihad at-tanzili, macam mana nak mengadaptasikan hukum syariat. Itu pun ada debate. Lepas tu kalau timbul, apakah hudud boleh dilaksanakan pada hari ini? Ini bukan isu menolak maslahah, bukan isu menolak hukum, bukan. Dia isu tanzil, dia isu mengadaptasikan. Ada orang tanya saya, hudud laksana ke tidak? PKR, dia tanya PKR kan, mentang-mentang kita masuk PKR. Padahal aku sebelum ni PAS. Aku PAS sebelum ni masuk PKR, jadi 2-3 hari masuk PKR sudah bercakap macam tokoh besar dalam PKR. Ini nampak kena tanding dalam jawatan besar-besar. Dah tu? Contohnya kan? Okey, tak. Jadi, kalau orang tanya saya, yang penting kita kena ingat, hudud ada sejarah telah dilaksanakan dan gagal. Contoh Sudan dan Pakistan. Sudan Pakistan dia pernah melaksanakan hudud dan terbukti gagal. Bahkan banyak kezaliman yang berlaku. Antara contoh bila orang tu dirogol, jadi mangsa rogol itu pergi report dekat mahkamah. Bila report, dia tak ada klausa rogol. Rogol ni kat mana ni sebenarnya? Rogol memang tak ada dalam hudud. Dia dalam perbincangan takzir. Tapi bila tak clear tu macam mana? Kita ambil definisi bagi zina, iaitu ilajul hasyafa fil farj. Tenggelam kepala zakar dalam kemaluan perempuan. Yang tu, iyalah tu. Kena definisi tu, makanya kawan tu pula dikenakan hukuman qazaf sebab gagal mendatangkan 4 orang saksi. Last kali mangsa pula kena. Yang land owner, yang tukang rogol tu pula, dia pula relax. Maksudnya ada kegagalan telah berlaku di Pakistan. Begitu juga berlaku di Sudan. Ada seorang ulama Islam namanya Syekh Mahmud Taha. Dia kritik cara pelaksanaan hudud di Sudan pada ketika itu. Apa yang berlaku? Dia pula dituduh sebagai murtad dan dia pula dikenakan hukuman bunuh. Ini berlaku di Sudan. Jadi bila kita timbul, kenapa hudud di Sudan, di Pakistan jadi macam itu? Dia bukan isu syariat, tetapi isu macam mana orang berinteraksi dengan syariat. Itu problem yang lain sebenarnya. Kebimbangan kita, benda itulah yang berlaku di Malaysia. Itu kita bimbang. Sebab tu kalau orang tanya saya, negara yang paling afdal, ambil kau. Negara yang paling afdal melaksanakan hudud adalah Sweden. Itu lebih afdal. Jadi kalau Kelantan nak melaksanakan hudud, mewajibkan melaksanakan satu syarat yang penting, iaitu dia memastikan negeri itu lebih baik daripada Sweden. Lebih baik daripada Sweden, baru boleh laksanakan hudud. Kalau tak boleh. Sebab kalau kau buat jadi macam Pakistan, jadi macam Sudan. Itu kan terfitnah pula kepada hukum Islam itu sendiri. Persoalan dia, apakah Kelantan nak buat? Itu soalan dia. Dia kata, kenapa kita nak tiru Sweden? Sebab pemerintah Sayyidina Umar lebih baik daripada Sweden. Sayyidina Umar yang lebih baik pada Sweden itu pun boleh KIV-kan hukum hudud. Kenapa kita yang tak berapa nak Sweden ni, jauh lagi kiamat nak berlaku macam Sweden tu, tengok apa yang kita amalkan, tiba-tiba kita nak laksanakan yang memungkinkan berlaku fitnah seperti mana di Sudan dan juga di Pakistan. Ini bukan isu kita menolak syariah. Ini bukan isu menolak Islam. Ini bukan isu menolak nas. Tetapi isu tanzil, pengadaptasian. Macam mana kita nak aplikasikan. Itu pun satu benda kena debate. Yang seterusnya berkenaan dengan hudud. Dia hudud ni, enactment hudud Kelantan dengan hudud dua benda berbeza. Itu kena clear. Saya ada kritik 8 artikel berkenaan dengan enactment hudud Kelantan. Saya tak setuju banyak perkara. Apabila saya baca enactment hudud, yang sebelum ni saya memang mempertahankan gila-gila. Apa itu enactment hudud? Jadi bila bertahan, tak baca lagi. Bila kita baca, bila baca tu, kalau inilah bentuk enactment hudud Kelantan, ini bukan karpal sing, aku pun tak terima. Sebab apa? Sebab ada hukuman rejam. Sedangkan ada debate di kalangan ulama-ulama Islam, apakah rejam ni wujud dalam syariat Islam ataupun tidak? Bila hadis-hadis yang menceritakan pasal rejam tu, dia ada problem semua. Bunuh pada orang murtad. Bila bunuh orang murtad, betul ke semata-mata murtad perlu dibunuh? Bila kita semak rupanya ada debate di kalangan ulama, rupa-rupa bukan semata-mata murtad tu dibunuh. Apabila melibatkan pada pemberontakan baru berlaku pembunuhan. Lepas tu pun banyak debate-debate tau. Jadi dia adalah ijtihadi. Yang pasti pindaan 2015 asalnya enactment tu 1993 kan. Lepas buat pindaan 2015. Okey, bermaksud enactment tu boleh dipinda. Bila enactment tu boleh dipinda, nak tolak tak dosa lah. Sebab boleh dipinda. Kalau menolak itu satu dosa, makanya meminda tu lagi kafir. Betul tak? Logik tak? Sebab itu boleh pindah. Kenapa ulama tu pindah? Kalau kau kata tak boleh tu, kena sokong, wajib sokong. Siapa tak sokong berdosa. Kau pindah boleh pula. Jadi nak terima ke tak nak terima tu pulang. Dan tak jadi dosa kalau kita nak tolak sebab ulama PAS sendiri dia meminda benda tu. Okey? Jadi DAP ada point nak hujah. Ada hujah. Betul, itu logik dia lah. Sebab itu adalah bila pindaan, maksudnya ijtihad di kalangan ulama-ulama pas. Nak terima, tak nak terima sudah. Sebab ijtihad ni memungkinkan silap. Nabi kata fa iza asaba falahu ajran wa in akhta'a falahu ajrun wahidun. Kalau betul 2 pahala, kalau salah maknanya Nabi mengakui kemungkinan salah. Nampak? Dia bukan 100% tepat. Kadang-kadang mungkin 60%, mungkin 70%. Yang lagi 40%, 30% mungkin tak tepat. Ada kod kat situ. Maksudnya, jadi tak ada masalah. Nak terima sudah. Tetapi kita kena akui Malaysia ni negara demokrasi, jangan halang. Kalau PAS nak cakap pasal hudud, dia punya pasal. Saya rasa kena clear. PAS nak cakap hudud, dia cakap hudud. Itu hak demokrasi dia. Tapi dia pula janganlah nafikan hak demokrasi di AP yang nak kata tak nak terima hudud. Jadi masalahnya dia bercakap, kafir. Lah kafir. Zahir ni elok Islam. Tiba-tiba kena kafir. Berapa ramai dah sekarang orang-orang Islam sudah masuk DAP kan. Jadi DAP ni tidak boleh dikatakan sebagai kafir harbi lagi. Dia kena kata Muslim zimmi. Okey. Macam tu kan. Mungkin lah. Saya mesti suka punya. Okey, masalah apa ni? Manusia jadi baik dengan hudud. Sebenarnya manusia baik bukan sebab undang-undang tau. Manusia ni baik sebab attitude. Attitude dia baik. Nabi Muhammad SAW datang, dia baiki attitude orang. Kalau orang tu maki orang, macam mana nak bagi orang tu boleh berhenti maki orang? Dan sebenarnya tak pelik kita nak tukar attitude. Saya ni selalu saya buat misal, banyak forum saya sebut lah. Dulu orang Melayu kita, Malaysia, agak pelik melihat orang perempuan pakai furdah. Tetapi memakai furdah pada hari ni adalah perkara biasa. Dulu, kalau pakai jubah ni, satu benda yang pelik. Saya umur 13 tahun, saya pakai Quran. Saya pergi dekat The Store, dekat Sungai Buloh. Saya pergi seorang, saya dilihat seperti alien. Sebab seorang pakai jubah. Betul, apa hal aku jadi alien ni? Tapi bila umur 33 tahun, saya pergi, saya tengok bukan saya tak pakai jubah dah. Orang lain pula orang pakai jubah. Bukan sekadar dia pakai jubah, dia punya girlfriend tu pakai skirt. Itu yang best tu. Betul kan? Maksudnya orang sudah faham. Rupa-rupanya attitude ni boleh berubah. Betul kan? Attitude manusia boleh berubah. Terpulanglah macam nak buat. Rasa tugas kerajaan membina attitude rakyat supaya jadi baik. Itu tugas kerajaan. Terpulanglah kempen lah, gunalah RTM ke TV. Janganlah pergi kempen untuk cover Yadim tu. Ini cover sampai Jakim pun make up. Apa hal? Kan? Nak entam juga. Okey. Jadi manusia ni dia jadi baik bukan sebab undang-undang. Manusia jadi baik sebab attitude. Attitude baik, tiba-tiba ada orang melanggar attitude, baru dikenakan hukuman. Attitude tu baik, lepas adalah mangkuk ayun mana tau. Dia nak langgar juga attitude yang jadi biasa dalam masyarakat. Baru kita kenakan hukuman kepada orang yang langgar attitude tadi. Rasa kalau macam tu kita buat, insya-Allah kok jadi kebaikan lah, insya-Allah. Baik. Yang seterusnya, siapa yang nak laksanakan Kak punya soalan kan? Pasal siapa nak laksanakan kemaslahatan? Dia tak boleh, kalau dalam tradisi Islam kita tengok Dr. Said Ramadan Al-Buti, dia ada tulis satu kitab Dawabitul Maslahah. Dia sebut 5 dawabit maslahah. Admu mukhalafati li kitabillah, admu mukhalafati li sunnati Rasulillah, admu mukhalafati lil qiyas, hifzu maqasid syariah al-khamsah, admu tafidil maslahatil akbar. 5. Tak payah bahas ni kena buat kuliah lain. Jadi cerita dia, kemaslahatan adalah last sekali apakah memberi kebaikan ataupun tidak kepada rakyat. Itu isu dia. Rakyat bukan pemerintah. Sebab kalau kira pemerintah tu baik, maka dia boleh rembat RM590,000. Sebab kebaikan dia, kan? Yang kita cerita bukan kebaikan dia, tapi kebaikan kita. Apa pun implikasi. Sebab, masa lewat, okey Gerat, pendek-pendek kan insya-Allah. Jadi apa-apa pun kita kena tengok kepada implikasi. Okey, sebab masa tak mengizinkan, saya kena pendekkan. Yang seterusnya berkenaan dengan konsep kewarganegaraan, zimmi dan harbi. Sebenarnya dulu kerajaan adalah monarki dulu. Dinasti Umayyah, Abbasiyah, Osmaniyah. 3 Lepas tu tak ada dah konsep monarki yang bentuk macam dulu, tetapi ada konsep nation state, negara bangsa. Baik. Zaman dulu konsep negara adalah apabila orang tu masuk dalam sebuah negara, dia terus jadi warga negara dengan dia masuk Islam. Tiba-tiba dia tak nak masuk Islam, dia kena bayar jizyah, maka dipanggil sebagai kafir zimmi. Tiba-tiba dia tak nak bayar jizyah. Bila tak nak bayar jizyah, kita suruh masuk Islam pun dia tak nak, makanya dia ni ada elemen-elemen nak memberontak, dia dipanggil sebagai kafir harbi. Konsep tu dah tak ada zaman sekarang. Sekarang ni siapa-siapa duduk dalam Malaysia ni ikut syarat-syarat dia boleh jadi warga negara. Makanya kita akan tengok ada Bangla jadi warga negara Malaysia. Ada Pakistan jadi warga negara Malaysia. Bukan sekadar Pakistan dan Bangla jadi warga negara, bahkan dia boleh mengundi lagi. Undi tu pula BN lagi. Itu lagi kacau tu. Jadi maksudnya konsep warga negara dah tak sama. Kalau orang timbul ada kafir zimmi, kafir harbi pada hari ni, itu adalah dakwaan yang tidak berasaskan kepada ilmu. Itu adalah dakwaan yang berasaskan kepada sentimen kepolitikan, kepuakan, dan tak ada beza dengan apa dilakukan oleh Khawarij dulu, yang Ali bin Abi Thalib kata kalimatuhu al-haqqa wa arada biha batilun. Kata itu mungkin betul, tapi yang dimaksudkan itu adalah kebatilan. Sebab tu saya nak cadangkan, kalau kita fikir politik ni, apa-apa pun last sekali kita kena pergi kepada apakah memberi kebaikan kepada rakyat ataupun tidak. Itu basic awal. Kita letak dalam kepala. Rakyat tu Muslim ke tak Muslim ke, kita adalah manusia. Bila kita manusia, dahulukan konsep kemanusiaan. Okey, ada satu hadis Nabi SAW. Nabi Muhammad sampai ke Madinah hari pertama. Apa ucapan Nabi di hari pertama Nabi sampai ke Madinah? Yang meriwayatkan hadis ni seorang Yahudi yang dah masuk Islam. Namanya Abdullah bin Salam. Dia cerita, aku ni dengar cerita pasal Nabi ni terlalu banyak tau. Banyak cerita Nabi, baik-baik. Tapi orang baik ucapan ni mesti bagus. Orang hebat, ucapan ni mesti hebat. Kalau dia orang hebat, cakap dia tak bagus, itu tak berapa nak hebat. Nabi Muhammad sampai, Abdullah bin Salam, dia masuk celah manusia, dia dengar ucapan Nabi. Nabi kata apa? Nabi kata 4 perkara. Kena laksanakan. Nabi kata, afshus salam. Wa at'imu ta'am. Wasilul arham. Wasallu wa nasu finyam tadkhulul jannata bis salam. Nabi kata, nombor 1, sebarkan salam. Nampak tak kemanusiaan? Sebarkan salam. Nombor 2, wa at'imu ta'am. Buatlah keduri. Apa orang Cina kata? Makan pusat. Makan besar tu kan? Dia makan besar, buat makan. Ajak orang makan. Makan, kita belanja makan kan? Yang ketiga Nabi kata wasilul arham, hubungkan hubungan silaturahim antara satu dengan yang lain. Yang keempat baru Nabi kata wasallu wan nasu finniyam, sembahyanglah dikala orang sedang tidur. Tadkhulul jannata bis salam, kamu akan masuk dalam syurga dengan penuh keamanan. Hadis tu Nabi nak gambarkan 3 perkara kemanusiaan yang luas sekali, baru cerita tentang at-tadayyun, keberagamaan. Betul tak? Jadi bila sebut politik, kemanusiaan. Bacalah ayat Quran macam mana pun, baca hadis macam mana pun, kalau tak kemanusiaan, itu adalah kebatilan. Wallahu a'lam.
Okay. I think most of the questions have been answered already. I'll address a few. First, there was a good question on labels and why we use labels. Well, firstly, I think we have to realize that, as I said earlier, Islam is now something that dominates in Malaysia. It dominates all spheres, personal sphere, public sphere, and that's a reality we have to deal with. Secondly, you are right when you say beneath the labels are just values. But the problem is if you don't contest the labels will be hijacked, and they'll be used by the other side to mislead the people. And it is compulsory for us to contest these labels ferociously. Because as what Datuk Saifuddin said, they are having the same forum with the same title, but completely different values. And if we don't contest it and put our values in there, it'll just be theirs. So Sharia, Islam, everything we misused to mislead the people. So that's why it's very important that we contest these labels. Secondly, there was a question about Islamic State. Yeah, I mean, this is a very complicated thing. I mean, the question, of course, it's very long to answer because first thing is you have to define what an Islamic State is. There is no real, I think, consensus on that. It's a very modern concept. I mean, previous to the 20th century, there's no state that you can call an Islamic State. There was an Islamic Caliphate, but that's a completely different thing. So how do you define an Islamic State today? Is it a state that implements Sharia laws, for example, or, as what we have seen in the example that Dr. Wong Chin Huat showed us earlier, where all the countries that are most Islamic are actually not, Muslim majority countries. So how do you define, how do you put these parameters in to define and determine what is Islamic in terms of a state, of a country? But I would like to say this in any case. And as we have talked about all these values and so on, so I think, to be fair, to be frank, to be a great Muslim country is not to have the biggest mosque, or to have the most effective Snoop Squad, or to have the best or most powerful religious department. In fact, you probably end up being a terrible country. But it is actually to implement all the values that is espoused by Maqasid Syariah, which is actually universal values, as what you said. They are the same. They're all the same values, which is justice, equality, freedom, humanism, even pluralism. I know pluralism is a bad word in Malaysia today, but it's a very important concept, and it's also something we learned in Tunisia. I mean, Tunisia is 99% Muslim, but when I speak of pluralism here, I mean complete inclusiveness. Now, for example, during our conversation with Sheikh Ganushi, one of the things he told us was that in Nahda, we have women MPs who do not wear hijab. This is an Islamist party. Can you imagine PAS has women members who don't wear hijab? You cannot. And they have MPs, members of parliament, who don't. But Sheikh Ganushi is, of course, somebody who believes women must wear hijab. But the point here is that he does not impose. And there is a clear delineation between the personal and the public. So I think that's key. So inclusiveness is also a very, very important value in Sharia. And that is something that we must practice. So I think bringing back to the local context, and you talk about an Islamic country or Islamic state and so on and so forth, just as Sheikh Anushi said, Tunisia, despite not having Sharia laws, is a Sharia country. I would also say the same, and that, Penang, by implementing open tenders, by having asset declarations, by fighting corruption, reducing inequality, Penang is in Sharia. I mean, we don't have Hudud or Sharia laws, but Penang is within Sharia, the framework of Sharia, because we focus on the values, and I think we have done it well. There's much room for improvement, but this, I think, is what Pakatan Harapan is trying to offer. This is what we're trying to bring to the table. Last question, ada soalan mengenai hudud, dan apa ni? Hudud memang menjadi satu fobia kepada DAP especially, yes. But here I would like to take, I think sebenarnya Ustaz Wanji pun dah banyak mengulas mengenai hudud, dan saya rasa tak perlu saya mengulangi, tapi saya nak ambil angle lain pula, ya. The problem with hudud, masalah hudud di Malaysia is actually dia bukan isu agama, dia isu politik. And actually DAP punya approach macam tu. Kita nampak hudud ni sebagai satu isu politik, bukan isu agama. Dari segi agama, DAP tidak mempertikaikan hukum, ya kita faham dalam Islam, dalam Quran, ya ada hukumnya, ya. Tapi yang kita mempertikaikan adalah cara PAS nak melaksanakan hudud, ya, dan cara hudud diketengahkan di Malaysia juga menjadi satu masalah. Okey, ni mungkin orang tak faham sangat. So bila orang Melayu tanya mengenai hudud, dia tanya kenapa DAP tolak hudud, ya. Dia ada benda yang tak faham. Dan apabila Cina pula, ya, datang kepada DAP dan dia punya pendekatan adalah sangat berbeza, dan saya nak bagi contoh di sini. Kalau kita baca media, kita buka Utusan Malaysia, masa debat hudud itu tengah hangat, tiap-tiap hari kita nampak dalam Utusan Malaysia dia kata apa? DAP menghalang hudud, ya. Disebabkan persekongkolan PAS dengan DAP, PAS telah mengorbankan agama Islam, PAS diperkudakan oleh DAP dan sebagainya. DAP ini menjadi penjahat yang ingin menghalang hukum Allah. Tapi kita baca surat khabar Sinchu pula, the Chinese utusan. Chinese utusan ni, Sinchu, 5 pages coverage, hentam DAP, sebab DAP lah Kelantan boleh laksanakan hudud. Sebab DAP menghalalkan perhubungan dengan PAS ni dan sebab itulah, ya, kita dapat hudud di Malaysia. Memang contradict betul, ya. Dalam akhbar Melayu dia kata DAP penghalang hudud, tapi dalam akhbar Cina dia kata DAP lah yang memudahcarakan pelaksanaan hudud. Jadi masalah di Malaysia adalah masalah penyampaian maklumat, ya. And we cannot have a proper discussion on hudud until we fix this problem, because everybody is coming with completely different idea of what hudud is. And in fact, the Chinese translation of hudud in Malaysia is chopping hands law. Yeah, I don't know what I don't read, but that's what I was told. But the point is, they don't even understand what it means, So dalam suasana di mana perbincangan atau wacana mengenai hudud tidak boleh dibuat dengan secara logik, macam mana kita nak melaksanakan benda ni, kan? So for me, hudud is something that we should talk about in the civil society space. Kita boleh buat forum, kita boleh buat perbincangan, debat, no problem, ya. Tapi cara PAS nak melaksanakannya seperti mana Ustaz Wanji kata, bermasalah, ya. Enactment sendiri dah bermasalah. I don't have to go into detail. Okay. Okay, I think that's all the question. Thank you.
Now you know why the Penang Institute is organizing this, because we're helping the Penang state government effort in implementing Maqasid Syariah.
Let me add something about Hudud. Actually, I don't think the issue is all about the Hudud itself, but it's about people who feel insecure of their daily life. I mean, despite of all those index or KPI, whatever, but people don't really feel safe anymore to leave their kids at home, to walk on the street at night. People don't feel safe at all. So the Maqasid here is to overcome that crime. I mean, to get more CID officers, to get more police officers, to get more CCTVs, and but people, they have no alternative for that. The only thing that, I'm sorry to say, but according to Merdeka Center research, it's shown that a lot of Malay, the head of the state, I know it's a hot potato. Nobody wants to pick that question up. But my reply would be, if the British government is willing to throw away the Church of England and the Queen at the head of the Church of England, that could be a precedent for us to emulate in Malaysia. But there's no precedence yet, because it was the British government who gave us this gift that we inherited until nowadays. Okay, it's not in the Islamic script, it's not in Maqasid Syariah, but it's totally a British legacy that we are inheriting now. No, I'm not joking. Okay, talking about death penalty, I quite disagree when people say that we cannot abolish death penalty because Islam is against it. It's not true. I'm part of, I was invited by Suhakam the other day in the discussion about death penalty according to religions. There's only 3 punishments in Islam which involve death penalty. Number 1 is stoning, which according to a lot of scholars and Wanji have mentioned, that law is based on that penal code 112. Yeah, it sounds very archaic. Yes, because we inherited from the British. And where did the English people got this idea from? It's from the Torah. The spirit of law, the spirit of common law, actually, you could find it in the Judeo-Christianic tradition. When you look at that, you could find that blood money, or what we call it in Islam as diyat, is also being recognized by Judeo-Christianic canonical law tradition. So that is why there is a proposal that instead of having death penalty, we go for blood money, because it will give benefits for the victim families. Because nowadays, if any individual being murdered, the family will receive nothing, unless if he has insurance policy. Okay, but important. We are living in the age of mutually learning from each other. Somebody asked about Maqasid, somebody asked about Sharia, whatever. I mean, we need to mutually learning from each other, not only about Maqasid, but about other values too, and about other religion too. A lot of things we could learn from Confucianism, for example. A very interesting book written by O.K. Beng, a friend of mine, which is his interview with the guru of history, Wu Gangwu. When he explained how Confucianism being practiced in ancient China and even nowadays, you could feel that a lot of similarities you could find it in Maqasid Syariah. Okay. A lot of things we could learn from Catholicism, from Protestantism, and even Judaism, and even Buddhism. But I'm not talking about the transcendental or theological issues, or else people will accuse me of becoming a perennialist, or here they call it what? Pluralist. No, I'm talking about mutual value that give us the meaning of humanity, to live as human beings who respect each other, who acknowledge each other, and mutually recognize each other. So thank you, Watching What. Thank you, Penang Institute, and thank you, Dewan Perniagaan Cina, for allowing us to have this. Okay, Dewan Perhimpunan Cina to have to allow us to express our view and to exchange ideas. I hope more will be organized by other civil society organizations out there, because it's live, isn't it? Okay. If it is not 4 of us, you can always find a lot of other academicians outside there, and sometimes a lot of information might not be explained accurately by politicians, because they always have a lot of points to score. Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Well,
There's an academic conclusion.
yeah. Well, in Islam, they say even you go to China, you need to pursue knowledge. I think that we are heading towards midnight. We are still here. Please give yourself a round of big hand. I think that's amazing. And, you know, Islam, by after tonight, for all of us here, this is not a monopoly of Muslim. Everyone can use this platform to discuss idea, nothing too sensitive and so on. I think that's at least what we can take home. I would like to thank everyone, the organizer, Penang Institute and Selangor China Assembly Hall. And Kok Hua, you want to present something for our... Huh? Okay, all right. Thank you. Then thank you, everyone.